Hey boos, in this video, I give commentary based on my opinion. Nothing is to be taken as factual. We are just here to have conversation. We don't expose and we don't sip tea on this channel. I'm giving you real talk straight, no chaser. Let's see if you can handle it.
Cause I'm a boss. I haven't done anything for you to be proud of.
Of course you have. You are marrying a man who can support you.
I do apologize for my tardiness. I was running late today. I had some mentor sessions and they ran over and it kind of set me back a little bit. So I do apologize for my tardiness, but I am excited to do this live. I have not watched this video, so my purpose behind this reaction is to expand on what is being talked about. I saw a clip go viral and I believe it was on YouTube, and it was a short that went viral and it really sparked my interest to do this video. So let's go ahead and get into this reaction. So today we're reacting to B. Simone's podcast. And I believe her podcast is called Let's Try This Again with B. Simone. And she sat down with Dr. Bryant, Cheyenne Bryant, and they talked about mother wounds and how to face your truth in healing childhood trauma. So let's go ahead and get into today's reaction. Thank you for the compliments. Okay. Let me show my, let me make sure that we're good.
Who raised you?
My dad raised me.
How come you couldn't save your mom?
It's like my closest female friends, they have great relationships with their mothers.
Mm-hmm.
That's not my reality. I'm never going to travel the world with my mom. My mom would probably
Sit in that. Don't avoid. Sit in that. Mm-hmm.
All right, you guys, I am still on tour, baby. The Still Standing Comedy Tour is coming to a city near you. You have been asking, so we are going to get together. No judgment here. Let's try this again. To heal and walk in their truth and be the best versions of their self, God. I thank you for this platform. I thank you for everything you have done to get LTTA up until this point, God, and just continue to propel me forward into my purpose and use my voice and my gift for your glory. In Jesus' name we ask and thank you. Amen.
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 All right. Wow, baby. Honey, okay, y'all. Welcome back to another episode of the Let's Try This Again podcast. I done led us in prayer already, and I'm already about to cry. It's like we didn't even say nothing yet, but I am so excited for this episode. It's going to be vulnerable. It's going to be real, and it's going to be deep, y'all. I have had the privilege, the honor to sit with this beautiful lady to my right.
Thank you, beautiful.
Dr. Bryant. I want to introduce you to the world. If you don't know who she is just a phenomenal woman that I had the chance to meet recently. This is our first time meeting in person, but I got to do a session with her. And when I say baby, she had me weeping on that phone like a baby, just pulling back the layers, unmasking, digging deep. And I just wanted to bring her on my platform to hopefully dig a little deeper, and share my story as much as I can publicly with you guys, the LTTA family. So y'all already know. Because when I was praying, I was like, I'm about to cry. Why are you about to cry? I don't know. Amazing, you beautiful Black queen.
Your guest, who can watch this episode and not just get laughter because you're funny as hell, but also get healing from them saying, that's me.
Yes.
That's my story. I do that now.
Yeah.
I did that.
Yeah.
How do I maintain that?
Yeah.
I got a sense of self from watching this. Damn. You know, those aha damn moments. And so thank you. I honor you for having this platform and allowing your platform to be used to change lives, to bless people, to bring them from the darkness to the light, and really help people get a gist of who am I, what do I want, where am I going, and how much of this do I self-identify with? Because it's important for people to know they're not alone in their pain. Nobody wants to be a villain. No one wants to be an island. And we all want to know at the end of everything that we're going to be okay. And someone gives enough
about me
to know that I got you and you got this.
And I can make it through this.
I can make it through this and we can process through. And so in a nutshell, I'm Dr. Cheyenne Bryant. I am a psychology expert, been doing it for 16 years. Started off as a marriage, family, and child therapist, transitioned into a doctor, into private practice. You've seen me probably on MTV's hit show, Teen Mom Family Reunion. I'm the on-camera life coach. I co-produced and developed that show. Also on different platforms such as Nick Cannon. And,
that's where I saw you. That's why I clicked. I said, Jesus, she is reading him.
Nick, but I had to get
he
it
took
together.
accountability. He was like, yes, ma'am. He did so good. He took so much accountability. And I was like, wow, I want to just have a conversation with you. And we did it off camera. And I was like, I have to get her on the pod. Like, we just got to.
He took accountability. I missed that part. Maybe I need to go and watch the full episode. I didn't know he took accountability. Nick Cannon took accountability, y'all. Anybody watch that full episode?
Oh, he did so good in session. I want to start with you just telling us a little bit about that little girl you spoke to me about, who was just trying to figure it out, just trying to survive, who blocked out a lot of stuff because the pain and trauma was just too intense. And just take me to the people pleasing that little girl does still in this grown adult woman today. And I want you to tell me how it served you and how it just did not serve you.
Lord. Okay. So as we talked about yesterday, like my parents got a divorce at a really young age, like a really, really young age. And my dad got remarried. And in that situation, it wasn't the best. You know, it was a lot of tension with his wife. And I feel like trickling over into me being 34, I'm just now realizing that came from childhood. Like literally in the past year, which is like, I'm just now realizing that at 34, which is nuts. But walking on eggshells, wanting everybody to be comfortable at the expense of my comfortability, making sure that everything else is okay, and brushing stuff under the rug, not setting boundaries, like being in an uncomfortable situation and having to try to fix it, opposed to just like sitting in that feeling. Like I hate that feeling so much that I'm like, how do I fix this? How do I get us back to a high? How do I get us back to being happy? How do I bring it from a 0 to a 10? And
I gotta stop it right there already. So is anyone in the chat that tends to struggle with people pleasing? I feel like a lot of Black women particularly, and to some degree, women in general, struggle with people pleasing because we center men, and that is centered around pleasing, changing ourselves, manipulating ourselves to please. We are here to serve. We are here to please. So people pleasing, I believe a lot of women struggle with that. Black women, I believe we struggle with it. It just looks differently for us, as far as sometimes we make ourselves smaller to be accepted in certain spaces. Some of it has to do with race. Some of it has to do with stereotypes. Some of it has to do with being told that it's better to have a piece of a man than not to have a man at all. And that means that we have to stroke egos. And I believe a lot of women can understand that point of view. But then even as young girls, we grew up under different standards. And I believe socially, a lot of women can agree with this as well, that boys will be boys. And it just seems like we come from a culture where the men can slack, but we cannot. Mommy's baby, daddy's maybe. And so we are always the ones that are left to fix. We are always the ones that are left to correct. We are always the ones that are left holding the fence up because it's just us. And so people pleasing, it really runs deep. And I believe it runs deeper than we would like to acknowledge or give credit to. But do you think, and this is just a question, do you think that the content online that is centered around getting a man, do you think that that also plays into some of your people pleasing tendencies? I mean, think about it. The whole purpose of people pleasing is you have to change yourself to be picked. or you have to change yourself. You have to manipulate yourself so much to the point where you will be tolerated. You will be accepted. You will be chosen. You will be loved. You will be married. You will be that girl that is finally in that position to be seen. Just something to think about. Let's continue.
I think, you know what, I didn't say this in our session. That's probably why like comedy was like a vessel for me, because I'm like, if people are laughing and they're happy, I'm not uncomfortable, or I'm not the villain, or if I make people laugh, they like me.
Yeah.
So I think that
comedy also plays a role in people pleasing.
And people
pleasing the people who find me funny.
Wow.
And so you created an entire world around how do I dissipate and regulate people's emotions to get them to a place of comfort so that my anxiety, when I'm not pleasing them, can be dissipated as well. As I regulate them, I can dissipate my anxiety.
Jesus.
Instead of saying, right, let them be accountable and responsible for regulating their own emotions. Because we talked about this in session, you can't do the work for nobody.
I can't.
So as you're people pleasing, which is an illusion, you're enabling, because you'll never be able to please someone past the level that they can please themselves.
Jesus.
So you're just in a vicious cycle of saying, okay, let me try to please here. The bar seems to keep raising. Let me please again. Not
It's
good enough.
literally like this.
It's just a
cycle. It never works.
And ladies, can we agree with that when it comes to what is required of us to get married and have a man? Can we also agree with that? Can we also agree with that when it comes to making friends in certain social groups? Can we also agree with that when it comes to getting picked for a job position? Like, where does it ever stop? Where is there an area in our life where the people pleasing does not stop? When can we authentically show up as ourselves and we don't have to keep manipulating ourselves to a point where we seek outside validation, and then in order for us to get that validation, it requires us to people please, to change ourselves over and over and over again? Why can't we just be accepted as we are? And who's to say who we are is a bad thing? Why is it seen as a bad thing? And I'm not saying that you shouldn't put effort into how you present yourself, but why can't you present yourself in a more authentic way? Why do you have to present yourself in a way to be validated, tolerated, and accepted? Why can't you present your best self in the way that you choose? And why is that not accepted? Something to think about. Also, do you think that this comes from the culture of womanhood in general, people pleasing? I don't really see this with men, but I could be wrong. I'm not a man. But why is it just more common in women than it is men constantly? And then to a certain extent, it's taught to us. It's taught to us. And then you know what I see? I see women get taken advantage of. That's what I see. I see women get taken advantage of. Now we're being told that we can't be nice. We have to be bitches. It's just going to keep changing. And like we said, when you people please, people just move the goalposts. So you're never going to win that, ever. You're never going to win that, ever. And then you're going to grow bitter and resentful because they keep moving the goalposts. They said, we have to be nice. And now they're saying, we have to be bitches. And then, do you see how extreme it is? Nice and then bitches. I mean, my goodness, when does it ever stop?
Works. And you get back to that point. Yeah.
But that cycle allows you to stay in the self-inflicting pain cycle of every time I see that I failed with pleasing this person, then I failed at my savior role that I continuously play. Talk about the savior role, because pleasing somebody is also you attempting to save them from whatever you believe they need to be pleased from. And let me go here. And it's something you don't know you're doing. We don't know we do it, but there's a lot of, on the flip side, arrogance in us believing that we're thinking that these people don't have it in them to save themselves.
Okay.
You
that we have to do it.
We have to do it. We have to do it, right? But that also plays a role in somewhere as a little girl, you were trying to save somebody, not just be Simone, but mom or dad, who are you trying to save? Because we learn the roles that we enter into as adults. So you said that dad and mom divorced.
They divorced.
Dad remarried.
Yeah.
Who were you staying with? Who raised you?
My dad raised me because my mom physically and mentally went through something, and physically and mentally she couldn't take on me and my sister.
Yeah.
So
So in that space, how come you couldn't save your mom? How come you couldn't save her?
I don't even know the answer to that.
Were you just not good enough to save her? Was your plan of action not planned out good enough? You couldn't execute it? So I'm asking, why? How come you couldn't save her?
I don't know.
Have you saved her yet?
No.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
You know, Dr. Cheyenne Bryant, she made a great point. She said that I think the savior complex is something that I also struggle with. And it's something that I actually, it's shadow work that I did under the workshop, under the solar eclipse. At times, I don't even know that I'm doing it. I don't even know that I'm doing it. And I know where it comes from. It comes from a place where I wanted someone to come and save me and they didn't. And so now that I'm in the position to help other people, it's like I want to be that savior for others. And it has burned me several times. And I continuously get burned by this. But she made a great point. She said, why don't you ever think that they can save themselves? Why don't you ever think that they don't want to save themselves? Why don't you ever think that they don't want better? Why do you just assume that they need help? And projection is also when you project your life story on others. And yes, you may have needed help and it may have came from a genuine place, but you are projecting that on another person and they may not need the help in the way that you wanted it when you were younger and you were looking for it. And so that's something that I am coming to the realization about, and I am breaking free of the savior complex. And I'm breaking free of wanting to be that person that is there to save, to help, to fix, to be this and to be that. And it's so crazy because even though I burned my cake for Black men, I was willing to be that for Black women. I'm no longer willing to be that for anyone. I'm a single woman, no kids, not married. I don't need to be out here saving anyone. I live in a society that doesn't even respect women who don't have kids and don't have a husband. So who am I to put myself in that position to try to save anyone? I should be fixating on saving myself. So someone asked me the other day, are you pro-Black? No, I'm pro-self. I'm pro-self. And I think a lot of Black women need to focus on that. I know a lot of us say things like, oh, I'm a girl's girl, or oh, I'm gonna be there for Black women, it's Black women only, and da da da. But a lot of times you are taken advantage of. Even when you try to help other Black women, you are taken advantage of. They don't really respect you in the way that you think. Some of it is entitlement. They are entitled. Like there was a girl on here that was mad at me because she felt like I wasn't a girl's girl when it comes to her situation. But it's almost like, how can you be entitled to me helping you simply because I labeled myself that, which is why I'm walking away from labels. But how can you be entitled to me being there for you based off of your choices and decisions that you made as a grown woman? It's something to think about. And then you have to remember that these people that you want to help, these people that you want to fix, these people that you want to save, a lot of them are grown. They're not children. They're grown. They are not children. Even when it comes to you being a girl's girl for that girl that went back to that man and she dealt with that man and she decided to deal with that man, like it's really not your job to help her, to save her, to fix her, to be there. And she made that stupid choice to deal with that man. You didn't make that choice, she did. And a lot of times when it comes to this thought process, you are an enabler. So when I want to jump in, I want to fix, I want to save, I want to help, I'm also playing the role of an enabler because this person is a grown ass adult and they have a choice to make better choices and decisions. So that's another part of this conversation that you need to consider. A lot of people that are people pleasers, you are also an enabler. You are an enabler.
How come? I mean, why?
I don't know the answer.
Okay. And so what does saving feel and look like on you towards mom?
I think it's like, and we talked about this yesterday, I think it's an idea I have of what a mom should look like.
What's that idea?
Like I see a lot of my friendships with my friends, like my closest female friends, they have great relationships with their mothers. Mm-hmm. And I know that would never look like, that's not my reality. I'm never going to go get a mimosa with my mom. I'm never going to travel the world with my mom. My mom will probably like,
sit in that. Don't avoid, sit in that. Mm-hmm. Stay there, because that's the reality that has you deflect and avoid through comedy, that has you deflect and avoid through people pleasing, that has you deflect and avoid through being a savior to everyone else. because what you can't do or haven't been able to do with your mom, you've been trying to overcompensate, do it in other areas.
Now, who can relate to that? Who has, and I mean, if you don't want to, talk about it publicly, I kind of get it, but I struggle with this as well. Growing up, I would see the relationships that other girls had with their moms, and they seemed very, very close. They hung out together, they bonded together. It almost seemed like they also had like somewhat of a friendship, and I always yearned for that. Like I never had that. And in some cases, I even struggled with jealousy. I struggled with jealousy as far as my dad, because I felt like if my mom wasn't spending time with me, she was spending time with us, her kids, and then she would spend time with her husband. But I'm the only girl. I'm in an all boys home. I wanted that one-on-one time with my mother. She was a working mom, and then also she was married, so she had wifey duties and things like that. But then she had motherly duties. But whenever she would go do her motherly duties, it was always done as a group. So I never got that one-on-one. I never got that individual connection with my mother the way that I really, really wanted. And in some cases, I felt like I needed, because I was the only girl. So I had jealousy for my father, because those moments where I wanted that one-on-one time, he had her time. And so I never got that time, and I needed it. And I'm talking about bonding. I'm not talking about, oh, she took you and dropped you off and you went and got your hair done, or you went and got your hair done at the salon. Like, I'm like talking about, you take a day and you spend time with your mother. You can have conversations about certain things with her. You can just spend the day with her. I never got that as a child. It was always the kids, and then it was her husband, and then it was the family, and then that was it. There was no one-on-one time with my mother, and that was something that I always wanted. And it's something I had to talk about in therapy, because I had jealousy towards my father. There were times that I just felt like he took up a lot of her time, and I just wanted some time with her. That's all. And now, with me getting older, sometimes when you get older, don't dismiss how you feel, acknowledge how you feel, because when you acknowledge how you feel, then you can move forward differently. So I had the conversation with my mom that I need bonding time. I need to be able to create memories with my mother that don't involve my other siblings. I need bonding time that does not involve my father. I need that one-on-one connection. I need that feminine motherly exchange when it's just the two of us. So I've been able to create that. My mother, she comes, she spends about a weekend to sometimes a week with me, like a few days with me out of the year, and we just spend time together. So the time that I wasn't able to get when I was a little girl, I am able to get that now. So I am able to bond with her now. I'm able to create memories with her now. But I will say this, when you don't open up your mouth and you don't communicate and you don't express yourself, you're never going to have a shot at maybe creating what you weren't able to have when you were a little girl. But how do you know this is what you needed, or this was the thing that was missing from your childhood, if you don't acknowledge how you feel? And that's why Dr. Cheyenne Bryant is telling B. Simone, I need you to sit in this, because you sitting in this is you acknowledging that this is how you feel. And it's okay to feel this way, but don't deflect. Don't crack a joke and deflect about how you really feel about your relationship with your mother. Is something that you need to work through and you need to process, so that maybe you can have that relationship with your mother if the opportunity is available for you to have it. But it will involve you speaking on how you feel. But if you deflect or you suppress, or you don't even acknowledge that this is something that you're struggling with, how will you be able to speak your truth about it? How will you be able to vocalize that to your mother? You won't, because you're not allowing yourself to feel it. You want to suppress it. You want to push it aside. You want to crack jokes. You want to make light of it. but you're not allowing yourself to really feel that. So then you are able to express to your mother that this is what you need, that this is what you need. And it's never too late to try to have that relationship with your mother. And I'm glad I had the opportunity to vocalize that to my mother. And sometimes the conversation just needs to be had. For other women, it may look differently. It may be way more challenging. It seems like B. Simone's situation, her mother is struggling with mental health. Or I'm assuming that's what it's kind of coming across as, but I'm not really sure. And so if you have a mother that's struggling with mental health issues and things like that, it's going to be way harder for you. It's going to be way more challenging for you. So I wonder what advice Dr. Cheyenne Bryant is going to give.
With everybody else.
Including yourself. So you won't be able to travel the world with her. And what are these other ideologies that you know?
Wow. The life that I built, like her enjoying it with me.
That's real.
Her being healthy, her being mentally healthy. Us having a deeper relationship, like my mom being my best friend. Like, I think the idea that I have of what a mom should look like, it's not my reality of who my mom is. So I'm like in love with the idea that I'm trying to make happen.
And every time you see her, you're what?
Disappointed or mad or upset or trying to make that real.
So you keep breaking your own heart over and over again.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So this idea you have continues to disappoint you, not your mom. I want to be clear on that.
That's facts.
Right? So when we realize our fairy tale ideology keeps breaking me, not this person, then it shifts us from mad, angry, upset to compassion. To understanding.
So I think this is a great point because I had to let go of the idea. Sometimes you have to let go of ideas so that you can create new, so that you can have what is meant for you to have. And sometimes we're given parents and we don't really know why. And yes, sometimes we're given parents and they come with neglect, but it also shapes us into the individuals that we are. And so if B. Simone didn't have the mother that she had, she would be someone else. She wouldn't be the same person. Same thing with me. And so it's hard to let go of ideas. It's hard to, but when you let go of ideas, then you can create. And so even though her mother, she has these challenges, but her mother is alive. Her mother may not be 100% well mentally, but her mother is alive. And what can you create with that? It may not be the idea that you had in your mind, but what can you create with what you have? And unfortunately, mental health is not something that I feel like it's just an easy, simple fix. So honestly, she could still create a relationship with her mom, but it's hard to do that when you can't let go of the idea. And maybe the relationship that she can create won't be the idea that she had. And that's okay. But still, what's more important to you? Having somewhat of a relationship or having the idea of the relationship that you want? Because you have the power to create based off of what is being given to you. Another thing too is one thing I had to learn is that the emotional connection, the bonding that I wanted with my mother, it was not given to her. And so the reason why she didn't know how to connect to me as her daughter was because she didn't have that connection with her mother. And so us creating based off of what we both have been given, based off of each generation, we're breaking that cycle. But it took me letting go of the idea, right? And we get these ideas because we look out into the world and we see other women out here, they have relationships with their mother. They're like best friends. I grew up a lot around girls that were truly best friends with their mothers. And then I've also seen friends, and this is crazy, but it's the truth. I've seen it. I've seen friends who were best friends with their mothers in their adolescence and their young 20-something years, and then they outgrew their mother. And so they're not as close anymore because the maturity level is not there. The outlook on life is completely different. So they went from being close to no longer being close. And so it's like at some point you have to let go of what things were and the ideas that you have so that you can create with what you've been given. And sometimes that's hard to accept. So I've seen it both ways.
Now we can have an intimate relationship. It breaks down the barriers that keep you from everything you really want anyways.
Like the reality opposed to the illusion.
Yeah. So you just been serving yourself chicken every day saying it's a T-bone steak.
Jesus.
And every time you bite into it, you gaslight the chef. And you're like, this ain't T-bone steak. The chef said, but you keep buying chicken.
Lord.
And I served you it, but you told yourself I'm eating a T-bone steak.
Yeah.
Knowing that it's not.
Yeah.
But you keep buying chicken.
Yeah.
You keep buying your ideology.
So how do you change? What is like a step to, how do I change that?
Tell your real story. Tell your real narrative.
Facts.
Take yourself out of emotional bondage, out of a fairy tale compartmentalized world, because you're compartmentalizing, which is normal. Because as a little girl, when you undergo so much trauma and so much pain, the only way you can survive that is to compartmentalize.
Got it.
You got to create a fairy tale.
Lord.
Because my world is crushing me.
Okay.
I'm 5, I'm 6, I'm 7. I have no insight. How do I navigate this?
Okay.
I don't.
Okay.
So I create a world that makes me feel safe here.
Okay.
And then I grow up to be a woman and I take this world here with me and I negate the reality of what's going on. And so every time someone does something that's against my idea of this fairy tale, I'm disappointed again. I'm brokenhearted again.
That's ridiculous.
And no matter how successful you become, no matter how amazing you become, you ain't good enough.
And I think
and everything around you isn't, because it doesn't fit that box.
I was talking to my sister about this recently. I mentioned this to you in our session, but like I get so triggered when I go back home.
Oof.
Like I'm like, why am I'm so happy with my friends. I'm happy here in this world I've created. And then I go back home, like mom's like, you need to see your mom more. And I'm like, we're working on it. Like, but I just feel
you don't feel happy in your reality.
Yes. Of what I'm expecting.
Ooh, can anybody relate to that, y'all? Every time, well, I won't say recently, and it's because there was a lot of emotional work that I had to do. But the reason why I was at first, my emotional growth was stunted because I didn't allow myself to feel anything. So when I first would, like the first year after moving to Houston, I would go back home. I would be just so triggered. Like everything would trigger me, everything, every little thing. And then once I started to do the emotional work and I started to allow myself to feel and no longer like push things aside, I would allow myself to cry and not stop myself from crying. I would allow myself to feel emotions like disappointment, being angry, being sad, feeling left out. I would allow myself to feel anxious. I would allow myself to feel confused. All those emotions that I would typically just push away, I allowed to come in and I would just let myself sit in that. And I would cry more. I would be way more emotional, but I was able to process. And now when I go home, I'm not triggered like I was before. Like when I say triggered, y'all, I mean like every little thing. It would trigger a memory from my childhood, or it would trigger an idea that I had in my head when it came to family in general. And so in order for you to lessen the blow so that you're not constantly triggered, you have to allow yourself to feel these emotions when they come in. And sometimes when they come in with bad memories. They come in with traumatic memories, things that it's crazy how the brain can forget. It's crazy how the brain can forget about things that were very hurtful to you or disappointing to you or made you feel like you were less than. So you have to allow those emotions to come in. When the emotions come in, they come back with memories, and then you have to actually confront them. You can no longer push them away, because if you do, then other people have the power to trigger you. Other people have the power to get in your head, make you upset or make you disappointed, or even it got to a point too where it would make me feel small. It would make me feel like I was 8 years old again, where I didn't defend myself. I didn't speak up for myself. I didn't know how to be confrontational when necessary. So I felt small. If you don't allow the emotions to come in so that you can work through them and the memories to flood back so you can confront them, then people are going to easily be able to trigger you easily. And it won't take much. I think I got triggered because when I went home, my mother said something, and it was something that I think she was joking about, but it like triggered me so bad. And it got under my skin so bad. And it was because I had not worked through what the joke was was about, and emotionally, and how that I never vocalized how that traumatized me. So joking about it would trigger me, right? So some of it is too, if you were the type of child where you internalized everything and you never spoke up, you never spoke out, you never used your voice to express certain things, you just suppressed everything, then yeah, like you're going to be silenced, but by default because of your own doing. And then you're also going to be triggered. So when you are like that, what do? Spiteful, petty. Some would say nice, nasty, passive aggressive. That's what you're going to do. You're going to go through all of that instead of speaking up and expressing yourself, using your throat chakra to do so.
Expecting and
You're happy in a false narrative that you can't bring home to your reality. And so when you're there,
I'm allowing it to trigger me and allowing it to upset me
because it's still, after 34 years, not fitting this ideology, this fairy tale that, and I say this with all the love and respect, nobody has to fit in. People only have to show up in who they are. And we only have to show up and facilitate that or choose not to. But we can't conform them to what we want them to be based on what we need.
And did you hear what B. Simone said? She said that she allowed her triggers to upset her. So she's aware that she has the power to not allow things to trigger her, to not allow things to upset her. You have that choice. You don't have to allow things to trigger you if you don't want to. But if you don't address why these things trigger you, then yeah, like you will continue to allow them to trigger you. You need to address why these things trigger you. Is it your insecurities? Is it trauma? Is it self-worth? Is it undeserving? Is it because you don't know who you are? Why do these things trigger you? Get to the bottom of that, because once you get to the bottom of that, then you have more power over things triggering you or not.
Jesus.
Which is called codependency, for us to feel good. So if when you went home, mom conformed to this fairy tale, to your codependency, only then can feel good in that space. When work and being healthy says, it don't matter what the space is. I control how I feel.
Okay.
I walk into my reality.
Okay.
And because I've accepted it, I've now learned how to make the best of it, how to bring the positive to it.
So is that a practice?
Oh, it's tools, it's work, it's practice. But first it's you accepting what the reality of it is. Okay, my mom can't do mimosas with me.
Nope.
In your situation, it's not that she doesn't want to. She can.
Right.
It's not, she can't. If you're telling me that there's things that incapacitate her from being able to, right, she can.
And then also for me, my mom can do mimosas with me, but y'all know I don't do sugar. But what I can't do with my mom, I can't have certain conversations with my mother. This is something I had to accept. So growing up, I had friends where I felt like they were so close. Like I felt like they could have conversations about boys. They can have conversations about friends. They can have conversations about this and about that. There are conversations that I cannot have with my mother. My mother is super religious. She only knows my father. So certain conversations I can't have with her. And then at times she can be very judgmental. So because this is who she is and I accept her for who she is, I'm not trying to change her because I have this idea in my mind. I have accepted to learn how to navigate this relationship and avoid religious conversations with her, avoid talking about dating and men with her, and avoid talking about politics. I created a new relationship with my mother based off of who she is and not what I wanted her to be. So again, it's back to the idea that you have with your mother. There are other things that I can talk to my mom about. I can talk to her about history. I can talk to her about research. I could talk to her about books, music, other interests that I have, because we are very similar. I am her daughter, but there are other things that make us different, like religion, and then her not having that much experience in the men department, and then also politics. That's just a whole nother conversation. She's more into politics. I'm more into conspiracy theories. And so we just butt heads. So because of that, I avoid certain conversations with her, and we talk about other things, and I bond with her based on those other things instead of wanting to have a relationship with her based off of the idea, like what I saw growing up with other girls in their relationships with their mother and things like that. So it's kind of crazy, but it's just the truth. And when I say my mother is like super religious, she is the type of person where you want to just have a regular conversation with her, and she's always bringing scripture into it. And it's like you kind of just want her to just be straight with you and not always bring scripture into it. Like, but she's not that type of person. She is a Bible thumping Christian, or, well, I don't even know what to label her anymore. She still believes in scripture and things like that, but I don't even know what to call her as far as her religious stance. But it's like, I just want to have a straight up conversation. Like, why do we have to keep bringing scripture into every little thing? And it's like, it drives me insane because it's like you have the scripture and the religious convo, but then like, I need the street convo, because there's religion and then there's real life there. And I'm not saying that they don't merge at times. They do. They can be uplifting, they can be empowering, but it's like I think the girls that grew up with a mother like this, I think you understand what I'm talking about. And you just want her to give you game, and instead she gives you scripture. Like when I started my menstrual cycle, my mother didn't have the sex talk with me. She read me a scripture, and it was just like, okay, mom, like I get it. It's forbidden to have sex before marriage, but can we have a real conversation about sex? And that's what I struggled with in my childhood. So then I had to go out and navigate boys, sex, and the opposite. I had to go out and just navigate the world by myself because I couldn't have that relationship with my mother. So it was hard. But then again, my mother was sheltered. So it's like I'm yearning for something that she can't give me. Like I'm yearning for something and I'm mad at her about it and she can't give it to me. So it's like, where do I stand now with her? Can I be mad at her? No, the anger is misplaced. It's misplaced. So my frustration, I had to let that go. The anger, I had to let that go. And I just had to create the relationship with my mother that was available to me based off of what she could give me and what I could give her. And it's just me navigating the relationship differently. It's not that I can't have a relationship with my mother. It's just I have to navigate what that looks like. And it's not the idea that I had, that I yearned for, the fantasy that I had as a young girl. So it looks differently. But I do have a relationship with my mother. I do. I have a relationship with my mother.
And so can I ask what the health issue is, or what?
I'm not ready to talk about that publicly. Like, I haven't talked about that. I've talked about it privately with friends, and I'm just now to the point where like I can share my mom's story off camera without bawling every time I talk about it. Like previously, if you would ask me about my mom, I'd be like, why are we talking about that? Like, why would you ask me about my mom? Like, I don't talk to, like very defensive, very triggered, but like publicly, I'm not going to share that yet. Okay. That part of my story.
Can I ask if there's mental health illness involved?
Yes. It's mental and physical.
Got it. So what is the reality about her that pains you the most, that you're openly okay with talking about? What is that reality that when you think of it, you find yourself not wanting to think or talk or ponder or ruminate in that? Because that's the part that says, when I'm with my friends, I don't got to feel this. So let me pivot over here. What is that truth? What is the chicken of that T-bone steak? What is it?
I don't really know, but I'm gonna try to talk it out. Maybe it's like, I know, like when I hear her voice or I see her physical state, that triggers me. And I don't know if it's like, I'm getting angry
at what? Yes. I'm getting angry at what? What are you mad about?
Gosh. That this is her condition because of the choices she made.
Ooh.
Mm-hmm. And as a result of that, this little girl has never been saved.
Ooh, who can relate to that, y'all? So one of the triggers, my mom, she triggers me not as much because she's trying, but my mom triggers me so bad because she does not take care of herself. And she didn't teach me to take care of myself. She taught me to neglect myself. She taught me to be a giver and to not expect to receive. And so now that I know that that's not it, right? She triggers me when she doesn't take care of herself. And sometimes we get into we get into spats. I can't even call them fights. But I'm always getting on my mom about taking better care of herself. And I think the reason why it triggers me so much is because I love my mom. You know, like I love her to death. I would do anything for her. But it's like, does she love herself though? It's like, I feel like at times I love her more than she loves herself, because a woman that truly loves herself takes care of herself, and she will neglect herself. And it's hard to watch. And it's hard because I'm her daughter. She's my mother, and I love her, and I have to watch her neglect herself. And it's painful. It's very, very painful. And it's crazy because my mom, she's made a lot of sacrifices, and I love her for that. But I don't want her to be known for that. I don't want to recognize my mother for the sacrifices. I want to recognize my mother because she loves herself. I want to recognize my mother because she takes care of herself. I want to recognize my mother in other ways. I don't want to recognize her for sacrifices. And it's not that I'm saying this from a place of ungratefulness, right? Like, I don't appreciate her sacrifices, but I just don't want to recognize her in that way. I don't want her to feel like the only way she can be recognized is because of her sacrifices. I just don't like that. And so we get into spats. I'm always getting on my mom about her taking better care of herself. And when I say better care, physically, mentally, nutritionally, also just overall, like, I just want her to pour more into herself. And then, like, this whole conversation is about, you know, being a people pleaser. So the reason why I get in spats with my mother is because I want to fix her. I want to fix her. So I like, I'm gonna make her meals, or I'm gonna wake up with her and go walking in the morning, or I'm gonna do her hair. I'm trying to make up for those areas because I'm triggered. And if I make up for those areas, then it will make me feel better. But here I am overextending myself, and here I am following in my mother's footsteps, sacrificing myself to help her and save her. It's a vicious cycle. So here I am, right? And sometimes we think we're better, but we're really not. It just looks differently. So that's one thing I had to let go of. And it's a form of people pleasing. And it's a form of savior complex. You can't fix, you can't save, you can't do any of that. Like, people have to want these things for themselves. And it's like, when I sit back and I watch my mother, I can relate to the mother that has to sit back and watch their child go through certain trials and tribulations, and you raise that child, and now they're an adult and they're making their own choices and decisions. And it's like, you have to sit back and watch them do things that you know is self-inflicted, and it's hurtful, right? It's self-inflicted, but it's self-inflicted hurt. And you have to watch them fall, and you just hope one day that they wake up and eventually snap out of it and realize that the hurt, the pain that they're going through is self-inflicted. So sometimes you have to take a step back, and taking a step back is hard, especially when you love someone, and you have to learn how to love people from a distance. And I think, honestly, if I'm being honest, moving away has really helped with this, because now I don't have to see it daily, or I don't have to see it so often. I only have to see it every now and then. And then when you live far away, you don't want to focus on the negatives. You want to focus on the moment. You want to focus on the time that you have with them, because they're getting older, things are changing. And so you just want to focus on time. You don't want to focus on the negatives. So it actually is helpful to be far away and to be in a different state.
And as a result of that, you didn't raise me. And as a result of that, I don't get a mommy-daughter relationship that I want. As a result of your choices.
Wow.
Now I have to create this false reality as a result of what you chose. So I deal with the residue that I had no seat at the table when the plan of action was being talked or planned about. Right. Nor did I execute this.
And then the reason why I feel this way, and I don't know if any other girls can relate, but it's like, I'm finally able to bond with my mother, but it's like, based off of her choices, how long do I have if she doesn't take care of herself? How long? Like, how long do I have if she's not taking care of herself? And I finally get to bond, but for how long if someone is not taking care of themselves? So it's very triggering to me. It's very, very triggering to me.
And it's an internal struggle because you want to forgive her. You want to have compassion. You don't want to feel those ways because you understand part of the adult you understands. You get what I'm saying? The depth of that situation.
It's literally a constant battle. Like, I'll be like,
it's internal struggle.
Back and forth. Just the way I feel and the way I show up doesn't align with what I know. Like, I know, like.
Yep. Sit in that. Stay there.
This is so crazy. I know that one mistake cost her whole life. She suffered enough. I know that she's happy. Like, she's fine. I know that for me to move on, I had to forgive her. I know that she loves me so much. I know that she regrets what she did. I know all of those things. But when I show up, the way I feel and the way I show up doesn't align with what I know.
Right. So say this. What I don't know is.
What I don't know is. What I don't know is. I don't know. Help me.
That's it. What do you not know? Or what do you know that you're covering up and protecting yourself and everyone else from?
I don't know.
That has you in bondage. Let's pivot to growing up with your dad and your stepmom. Okay. What was that like? Because that's going to tie us back into what I'm referring to with what you do know. And then what you don't know is the part that has you in agony and pain and in prison. Because if you understood it, you'd have the key to let yourself out of that. So we're going to penetrate that more.
Okay.
What was it like growing up with dad and stepmom?
And even that, like, it's so hard for me to talk about publicly. And I think the reason why I don't go into detail about my mom and detail about my upbringing so much is back to that, what we talked about, savior complex of me protecting everybody else in the midst of not telling my story, which I know I will get there one day. I'm just not there yet, which is like, so it's so annoying because it's like, it's my journey. It's my story. It's my testimony. And I want to share it one day, but I tread so lightly.
Did dad protect you when you were young? Did he save you?
Ooh, y'all. This is a lot. This is a lot. Ooh, let's talk about it. So I relate to this. Y'all know I come on here and I'm very transparent when it comes to my story. It's my testimony, right? But don't think that I don't deal with shit from family members. And I had to have the conversation with both of my parents. I'm like, at the end of the day, you are aware that this is the role that you played in this season in my life. That can't change, because if that changes, and you may not like how you showed up at that point in my life, that season that I was in my life, but that's how you showed up. And that's part of my testimony. I can't change my testimony because it makes you look bad if I keep it real. I can't change my testimony because it makes you feel like you were a bad parent. It's my testimony. If I change those parts in my testimony, I don't have a testimony. I don't have a story. I have nothing. And that's the only thing that keeps me going. So I've had conversations with both of my parents about this. That's how you showed up at this particular part in my journey, in this particular part, this season in my life. It's my truth. It can't change. If I change that, I don't have a story. If I change that, I don't have a testimony. If I change that, I'm not who I am today. I'm someone else. And see, that's the thing about parental figures. They don't understand that. They don't want to accept how they showed up because it makes them feel guilty. It makes them feel bad. It makes them feel like they failed. And it's not, and that's the thing. Your testimony, your story, your truth is not about them. It's not. It's about you. So I'm not going to be trapped in a lie or something that's not true to make others feel better. And a lot of people don't want to acknowledge how they chose to show up in your life. And that's the thing. It's a choice. We all get choices. We all get choices, which is why you should think before you say things. You should think before you do things. You should think before you act. You should think before you engage in certain situations with people, because remember, that's how you're choosing to show up. And we all get a choice. We're not kids, we're adults. You should be thinking before you do things. And see, a lot of people don't want to self-reflect and look themselves in the mirror about how they chose to show up. And now it's a part of your story and they don't like the character. They don't like the part that they played, but it's the truth. It's the truth. It's the truth. So I continue to speak my truth on my platform because if I don't have that, I have nothing.
No.
Right. So you have a responsibility to protect and save people who didn't do that for you. I'm asking. I'm being condescending, but I'm asking.
No.
You do. Because you are being responsible for protecting them and saving them.
God. That's nuts to think about. That is absolutely nuts.
You said it. You said it.
That's nuts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm still there though. I'm not out of that yet.
I know. So protecting and saving.
When you protect people in this way, you suffer the most. When you don't allow yourself to really speak freely regarding who you are, how you came to this version of yourself, you suffer. You live in misery because you can't be authentic. You have to be, and this is where people pleasing is still in this conversation. You have to be what they're okay with. You have to give the version of the story that they're okay with. And the whole time you're silencing yourself from the inside. You can't be like, oh, they're silencing me, or, oh, they're silencing me. No, you're silencing yourself and you're suffering in it. Look at B. Simone right now. She's suffering in her own choice to silence herself regarding her truth, her testimony, things that she's been through. And at some point, you got to look in the mirror and be like, I'm not silencing myself anymore. I'm going to speak my truth. That's going to free you. That's going to liberate you. But until then, you're going to feel trapped because you can't speak freely. You have to walk on eggshells. You have to make sure everyone else is okay. Everyone else is good. But here you are suffering. Suffering.
And then from what?
The truth.
Whose truth?
My truth.
Their truth.
Their truth. Just the truth.
Mm-hmm. And so them hearing the truth means what for you? Means what for them?
I think conflict. I don't want to have conflict. I don't want to hurt anybody. I don't want anybody to be mad at me for telling my story. I don't want
you don't want them to just like all of a sudden decide to not save you anymore, not protect you anymore. They haven't been doing it anyways.
Right. Wow.
So what is the payoff of protecting them at the expense of your healing journey?
Right. Right.
What's the payoff?
There isn't like.
So what are you saving? What are you holding on to?
Lord. So then how do I get there? Like, how do I get to that point? How do I
talk about this in session? You feel the fear and you do it anyways.
Honestly, y'all, I got to a point where I didn't give a fuck. I'm going to just be honest with you. I just did not care anymore. I got tired of walking on eggshells, right? To overcompensate for other people's egos, other people's feelings. But when it was the other way around, the way that they showed up in my life, right? How did they show up? So why am I putting myself in a position where I have to continuously walk on eggshells? It just got to a point where I just don't give a fuck. If you mad, be mad. Be mad. I don't care. And that's what a lot of people don't understand. You just got to get to a point where you just don't care. You don't care. And you have to make things about you. And that's the thing. The issue is people pleasing because you think about others before you think about yourself. And you're willing to suffer because you think about others before you think about yourself. And it's all self-inflicted. You can be like, oh, but it's them or it's them. But no, it's really you because you're doing it to yourself. You have the power to free yourself, but you're choosing to care more about what others think and how they feel and their egos and their feelings. And you don't want to create conflict, but here you are suffering and creating misery, and it's self-inflicted. So you just got to get to a point where you just don't care. You don't care. And yes, people are always going to have something to say. People are always going to judge you. But what these people don't understand when they're judging you because of your truth, you are free. You're free. And most people that judge your truth are still hiding, are still masking themselves. But you're free. You're free. People can't throw nothing up in your face. You already outed yourself. People can't throw nothing up in your face because you already told your truth. What can they really say? They can't say anything. The only thing they can do is keep recycling the same shit about you and then judge. And then keep recycling it and just repeating themselves. And it's like, at this point, you might as well just hit play. Because I already told my truth. You heard me tell my truth, and now you're judging me for it. And all you're doing is just repeating what I've already exposed about myself. That's it. That's it. So people are going to judge you. You can't care about that. And then this is the thing about judgment is people are going to judge you when you're doing good, when you're doing bad. People are going to judge you when they don't even know what the fuck is even going on in your life. People are going to judge you and don't even know what the fuck they're even talking about. So you're over here worried about what they're going to say about you. But at the end of the day, people are always talking. And then if you're interesting, people are going to stay talking about you. If you're very interesting, people are always talking about you. They're always going to have something to say. And it's not all bad. It's not. Some of it is positive. But there's some of it is negative. Some of it is gossip. People are always going to have something to say. And then when people don't have information on you, then they make shit up. But they don't know what's going on, then they make shit up. So when I say people are always talking, people are always judging, they're always talking, they're always judging, even when they don't know anything that's going on with you. So you might as well push past all of that and just be free. Why mask yourself? Why silence yourself? Why suppress yourself? You might as well just allow yourself to be free because these people are going to continue to talk. That's what they're going to do. And you should be flattered. You really should, because I'm like, well, damn, am I really that interesting? Am I really that interesting?
What if I said to you, you'll never be ready? Mm-hmm. So even the day that you decide, it's still going to be a day you're not ready. Yep. It's just the day that you say, I'm going to feel the fear and I'm just going to jump. Yep. And I'm going to trust that when I jump, there's dolphins and not sharks. Yep. And I'm going to trust that if there are sharks, God has equipped me to swim with them too. So I'm jumping. There's so many things, B, that we are just never going to be ready for. Yeah. That we have to make a decision, an executive decision that says ready or not, here I come. Yeah. And you breaking that secrecy, generational dysfunction and curse.
Okay, so T Don, thank you for asking. I'm going to take questions at the end. If you can hold your questions for the end, but I do want to touch on this. She said, how do I not care? Why do you care to begin with? And then you caring validates people. It does. It validates them. It makes them feel like they're right about you. And they could be wrong. They could be lying. They could be spreading lies and gossip. They could just be out here hating on your name. Why do you care? Because when you care, you validate people. You give them life. You give them air to breathe when it comes to your name. So when you care, you validate what they say. When you don't give a fuck, you're not validating them. You're not. And then they keep poking to see, oh, can I trigger her here? Can I trigger her here? Can I trigger her? Can I get her to care? Oh my God. And when you don't validate them, then they move on to something else. That's why silence sometimes is the best thing. You don't have to address every little thing. People who address every little thing care too much. They care. They care a lot about what other people think. So sometimes people poke around to see how they can trigger you. They feel you out to see how they can trigger you. And then when you care, you validate them. You validate what they say. And then what they say could be complete lies. It could. It could be lies. It could be just made up gossip. So I think you need to ask yourself, why do you care? And then is that attached to an insecurity? Because the care comes from where? You care because of why? Is it insecurity? Is it because you want to feel accepted? And when you don't feel accepted, it makes you feel less than, it makes you feel left out. Where does the care actually come from? Is it because this was a traumatic experience for you and what they're saying is triggering that? Let's heal that trauma that's attached to the care. Let's heal the insecurity that is attached to the care. Because once you do that, they can't trigger you. And you won't care because you've already outgrown those things. And so you'll move on with your life. But don't validate them. As soon as you care, you're validating them. You're validating what they're saying.
Could be the key to take everyone out of prison.
So much healing.
Because you can't heal a false narrative. So your truth, which gives them their truth, sets everyone free.
Wow.
And so what if God put you in the position with the platform, with a following, with a celebrity status, to say, I'm giving you all of this because
I already know that
you got to be the one that sets the truth.
I know that
straight.
I know that.
So then you prayed to sin, which means you believe in God. The Bible says it's better to be obedient than sacrifice.
Yep.
How much you think you're sacrificing now for not being obedient to your truth?
For sure. I know that.
And you're still willing to sacrifice it.
I know. I am.
I know.
Which is nuts.
I know.
This is nuts. Which is nuts.
So
Wow.
you sacrifice relationships.
Yep.
Friendships. Plurally, people.
Because
Right?
it's still happening now at 34. Something that I did or dealt with, not did, but dealt with in my childhood. I'm still dealing with at 34.
Because you can't get past, I have to protect everyone, which means I'm keeping everyone in prison and allowing them to be in their own prison cubby. And I'm going to walk by and give them a tray of food here and there to keep them in there when I'm the only one who can set this straight. So how much longer? How much more time, right? Are you willing to do? Because you're doing time. And at what point do you get out of survival mode and start thriving?
And you know what's crazy? I'm here for the villain eras. The villain era is not for you to be a mean girl. The villain era isn't for you to go around treating other people like shit. The villain era is for you to put yourself first. And people who people please struggle with this. We struggle with putting ourselves first. So when you step into your villain era, you're doing something that you've never done before, which is being selfish. So when I hear people say things like, oh, she's so full of herself, she's so selfish, I feel proud. I feel proud. I'm like, yes. Because the old me would be so selfless, so selfless to the point where I was suffering, so selfless to the point where I was overgiving, so selfless to the point where I was being taken advantage of. So when I hear people are like, oh, she's so full of herself, she's so selfish, she only cares about money, I love what I hear. I love it. It does not bother me. It doesn't trigger me. It makes me feel very proud that I was able to outgrow something that was hurting me. It was self-inflicted. So I don't feel any type of way. I feel proud every time I hear it. So villain eras are for you to consider yourself first. And when I was a young girl, I always considered everybody else, everybody. I would suppress how I would feel. I wouldn't speak up for myself. I wouldn't defend myself because I'm like, well, she's already in a bad place. Let me not say anything. Well, she's not in the best mood. You know what? I'll talk about how I feel later. I don't do that shit anymore. If you do something and it bothers me, I'm not going to make myself feel uncomfortable when I was made uncomfortable. But I'm not going to further make myself feel uncomfortable by not addressing what you did that made me feel uncomfortable. I'm not doing that. And then another thing, it goes even a step further because I used to be the type of friend where I would go and make things right. First, I knew I didn't do anything wrong. I knew the only thing I did was confront a friend about their behavior, their words, the situation that made me feel uncomfortable. But here I am going to her and apologizing and making things right. But if I remember, I was made to feel uncomfortable. I was made to feel disrespected. I was made to feel like I didn't matter. Yet here I am going to her apologizing. I don't do that shit no more. That is what it means to truly be in your villain era. So you spoke up, you said how this bothered you, this made you feel this way. And if they don't want to accept that, then you don't have a friendship and you never have respect. So that's what it means to be in the villain era. It's to stand up for yourself. And when you're not being respected, confront the person. If they don't want to listen to what you're saying, they don't want to hear you out and understand where you're coming from, you don't have a friendship. You don't have a relationship. You don't. I don't know what you have. So that's what it truly means to be in your villain eras. You are no longer overcompensating to the point where you are making yourself uncomfortable to make everybody else around you so comfortable. And then you have to sit in misery. Those days are dead. So you're in your villain era. And it is what it is. And people, I noticed that when you step in your villain era, people go around and they try to ruin your reputation because they can no longer control you. See, when they found out that you were a people pleaser, they had you under control. When they found out that you would be willing to make things right and apologize and take ownership, they had you under control. But as soon as you step into that villain era and they realize they no longer have you under control, then they take manners into their own hands and try to gain back control, because then you start to realize that you've surrounded yourself and you've made connections with a lot of people that seem like they have narcissistic tendencies. Seriously, because now you've been an enabler for people that are ego driven. And so when you no longer want to be that enabler, when you no longer want to be that people pleaser, and they realize that they don't have control over you anymore, they try to gain control by ruining your reputation. They try to gain control by going out and turning people against you. They try to go out and paint this picture to other people so then you don't have friends, so that you don't have relations with this person or that person. So no one would want to be around you because they can't control you anymore. And this can be a mother, a father, a sibling, an older cousin. It could be a friend. It could even be a lover. They will go out and they will smear campaign your name. And people will believe them because they're manipulators. And I always tell you that master manipulators love control. They're used to having control. So when they lose it, they go to the most extreme. And that means ruining your reputation. But what they fail to realize is you don't care about that. You're a villain now. You're a villain. That's what you are. You're not nice anymore. You don't give a shit about that. So whatever they put on your reputation, you cool with that because you have respect now. And see, that's what they don't understand. You traded in the people pleasing, the being so lenient and reasonable and understanding. You traded all of that shit in for respect. So the villain label, oh, she's selfish, she's full of fear. You will take that because you know what? What they don't tell you is it comes with respect. It comes with respect. That's what they don't tell you. So you traded all of that in for respect, and it's worth it. It's worth it. People know that they can't get away with this. People know that they can't play in your face. People know that they can't do this, that they can't do that. And so they have to run off and try to get other people on their side with lies because they don't have no other choice. But one thing that you had, one thing that you gained is respect.
What's a mindset of survival mode though? Like, just
I'm codependent because I need things to be this way for me to feel okay in it.
Got it.
I'm surviving if the environment isn't conducive to what my emotions need.
Okay.
I need to make sure I don't tell my truth because that bleeds on other people's truth.
Wow.
And if they respond or react a certain way, I'm dependent on them staying the way they have been in our false narrative.
For me to be comfortable.
For me to be comfortable.
Wow.
Because I'm a people pleaser. So their comfort brings me comfort.
Wow.
My truth creates chaos.
Wow.
Their discomfort's going to disturb me. Which means I, B. Simone, don't trust myself to be this uncomfortable. At the expense of that discomfort being the biggest piece to my healing. And everyone else's, because no one person heals alone.
For sure.
So you're just a reflection. You're just a mirror for everyone. And so for you, you're okay with making sure you keep the smoky mirrors up. Because keeping it up for them means you get to keep it up for you. That's your payoff. But that's that little girl in you saying, I live the reality, adult B. Simone. If you tell that, I'm going to break again.
Wow.
And you haven't released her and thanked her and said, listen, we grown now.
For sure.
I got this. I got this.
For sure.
You can't break with me at 35.
Okay.
Like I got you. So you.
And you want to know what else? You know what they don't talk about when it comes to the person that's not afraid to speak their truth and create chaos? You know what they don't say? You know what they don't tell you? People don't fuck with you like that. Like they not gonna do some weird shit because they afraid of what you gonna say. They afraid you gonna put them on blast. So when I say you get respect, at first it's self-respect. When you transition from the people pleaser to the villain, you gain instant self-respect. But what they don't tell you is when you start to talk and you start to tell your side of the story, now people are tiptoeing around you, but it's respect. Now people are like, oh, let me not say that, or let me not treat them like that, because they know you're gonna say something. They know you're gonna speak up. They know that once you say it, then it's out there and everybody knows. So they treat you differently. And the respect that they wasn't willing to give before, all of a sudden, they so willing to give it now. So instantly, when you go from the people pleaser to the villain, like I said, self-respect, instant. And then the outside respect comes later. It's like you start to gain a new reputation, especially when you have a platform like mine, because I come on here and I tell my side of the story. And then people start to treat you different because they're afraid of what you will say. That's what they're afraid of. So start speaking your truth. Speaking your truth can actually protect you. Speaking your truth can do so much for you. Speaking your truth and being authentic can also gain so much respect from other people, because now they're like, oh, she's not tolerating that. She doesn't allow that. She doesn't allow people to treat her like this or to treat her like that, because you're vocalizing how others did you. And so now they know, oh, I can't play in her face. I can't do this. I can't do that. I can't be fake with her. I have to be real with her. So you not speaking your truth is also you not using a resource. You're not using a resource. That's how you gain respect too. When you're not afraid to speak up and speak your mind, you don't have respect.
You can be a little girl now. You could be a kid now. You don't have to come in and protect me anymore, because she is going to, excuse my language, fuck up stuff in your adulthood, as she already has. Because adulthood has no place for a kid. Kids don't have insight. They sabotage. They save people, which is an illusion. Because you can't save anybody but yourself. Right? So that little girl keeps showing up in ways that reminds you to create this false narrative and fairy tale so she can survive. The adult in you is like, little girl, we need to heal. That's an internal struggle. It's time. I've elevated. I got to catch up to where I am, where I'm going.
Where I got to go.
I got to go.
Yeah.
And she's like, okay, but you're not going to protect us? And you have to be able to take leadership and be the adult in this little girl-adult relationship.
Okay.
Where she no longer runs the show.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
She runs the show. She shows up.
12-year-old.
Running.
Nuts.
Everything.
This is nuts. This is absolutely, everything. She's on retainer. Take all my money. This is nuts.
Right.
Nuts. 12-year-old.
Yeah. How much of this does your dad know? As far as how you feel? I know he knows the backstory, Mom. Does anyone know you want to tell this story, and how do they feel about it? Have you had that conversation?
No, I've never had that conversation, because I've never gotten to the point where I was even going to do it. So I'm just like, I just ignored it. But now the more I heal and the more, like when I tell it, it's definitely going to be a testimony and show, like, because I know God has called me to share this story. It's crazy. It's deep. It's nuts. When I was telling you, I was like, when I said it, I was like, this is wild.
You kept going, this is crazy. This is crazy. You were telling it like it just happened.
Wow.
But that shows how it's still intensely affecting you. You didn't even tell it like 20, 30 years ago. You relived it, B. Like you were the 5, the 6, the 7, the 12-year-old little girl telling me the story in disbelief that this is your story.
That it happened.
But that's how much you blocked it out. It's still, it's not even foreign to you. It's not 25 years old. It's like a couple months ago.
Wow.
So you're reliving that over and over again.
Okay.
I think you asked, how can you start? What are some of the starting points? I think having a conversation with your dad, with your family, with mom, if possible, saying, look, it's time. I'm at a crossroads with my healing and with God. I'm on my Moses journey.
Yep.
I'm at the Red Sea. God finna part it. And I want to walk. And when Moses got to the Red Sea, you know, the Red Sea is vicious. You can't swim that thing.
Yep.
He parted the entire Red Sea for Moses. Hold on dry land. Dry land. That means that when you trot your little tail across that Red Sea, B, ain't no footprints because the land is dry.
Yep.
He closes it back up. So you can't go back. Otherwise, you demise. You can't swim back. But also, your past that was trying to come across with you, which is the Philistines trying to get Moses, can't get across either. No. But more than that, because it was dry land, you ain't got no residue on your feet once you cross over. That's what healing does. That's what healing does. You are out of prison.
Yeah.
But when you get to the Red Sea, it ain't you that is sitting there having to ask God where and why. God said, I parted it. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Right? So that's where I feel you are on your healing journey. You have to see God pardon. He's going,
yeah,
what are we doing?
Yeah.
Having a conversation saying, I'm ready to tell my story, my truth,
Yeah.
which involves y'all. But I do respect y'all and I do love you. So I want to ask you, are you not okay with it? Because you're not asking for permission, but are you all ready for me to tell this story?
Yeah.
And do you want to talk about it and process it before I do? So that you allow them to be a part of the journey. Right?
Yeah.
And that's not you being codependent. That's you being interdependent.
When you share
and you're
that,
going to feel guilty.
I know. Oh, I know. Bad. I feel guilty now and I haven't even done it. I feel guilty having this conversation. Yeah. I'm like, edit that out, edit that out, edit that out. It's like, we didn't even say, I'm still tiptoeing around my story, but you inspired me so much when you told me yours.
Yeah, y'all know I'm always adding y'all into the inside scoop. Y'all know I'm super healthy. I do not pray about my diet. I've been vegetarian for years. I drink my green juices. I'm super, super healthy. So I want to tell y'all about something.
A camera, but I want you to share that just a little bit about that because it was, wow. Like, and you hear, I go to these events or these classes and you hear people's story and it's like, I never think like, wow, I can't believe they're telling that about their mom. Wow, I can't believe they're telling that about their dad. Wow, I'm just like, this is so inspiring.
100%.
I'm not thinking like they're talking mess about their family. I'm not thinking they're mean. I'm thinking they're telling a testimony and it's inspired me. So I'm like, why can't you see that same way for your story? Once again, I know why now, as of yesterday, after our call, but the protection mode. Like 100%. I never hear other people's traumatic stories and be like, I cannot believe they're telling the story about their abuser. I cannot believe.
But I had to come to the Red Sea of my Moses journey.
Yeah. And I want you to share that.
Yeah. And I had to remind myself that, hey, look, you made it here and nobody, as far as the two people who's supposed to row, at least my mom, you weren't protected. You weren't saved.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you saved yourself.
Yep.
You saved yourself.
Yep.
And with that wasn't resentment, but it was, and now it's time for me to continue to go next level in saving myself. And it was the hardest decision, but I had to say, if I have to be as selfish as they were, with not saving me and not protecting me in order for me to continue and really be healed and get past this. And that's just what I'm gonna have to choose. Meaning I'm gonna have to make the same choice they made right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I came to my mom, like I was telling you to go to your family. And I said, Mom, my mom had been addicted to the same drug my dad sold, crack cocaine, for about 30 years or so. And I said, Mom, listen, I'm ready to tell my story. And obviously you are the biggest part of my fabric. How do you want me to tell it? Because I don't want to tell it in a way that makes you look any way you don't want to look. I won't use the word crack, cocaine. I won't even use drug. Well, how do you want me to? She said, baby, listen, whatever way you got to tell it so that your healing takes place.
Wow.
That's the way you tell it.
Wow.
Who am I to tell you not to tell a story that's going to heal you?
Wow.
And I'm going to be in the rooms while you do it. And I'm going to be there to support you while you do it. And I was like, okay.
Did you expect that answer from her?
I did because of the kind of mother I have.
Okay.
My mom is her kids come first. My mom is whatever you need. I'll take one for the team. I'll take two for the team. Her response is, if I had to take being an addict for 35 years or 300 years for my kids not to be, I'll do it again.
Wow.
And I'll do it again.
Wow.
For my babies not to do it. So when I first told the story, I remember telling it because she was in the room and being like, okay, even while I was telling, I'm like, okay, she was addicted. And I'm like, do I go into the crack cocaine part? How do I say this? And so
like treading lightly.
And she just gave me that look like, and her eyes full of tears. And I look over and she has that look like, you tell it how you need to tell it. And I was like, oh shit, here we go. And I just went into it. And then after I told everyone my mom, was addicted to the drug my dad sold, and they had me at 15 and 16, and I had a bear crawl and figure this thing out called life on my own. And I put on my track shoes. It wasn't what I was running to, but it was what I was running from that got me here. And I'm still gonna keep these track shoes on. I'm still running. And I said, I want everyone to meet my mother, who's the VP of my company, who has her own company now, who is the VP of my Dr. Bryant Foundation. I said, Kim Ortega, and she stood up. They didn't know she was in the room, and she stood up, and everybody. I'm not exact. She's in tears. Everybody's in tears. They turned and they stood up and applauded her and I just sat there and let her get her flowers. And after that, I said, Mom, how do you feel? She goes, baby, you did that. Thank you. She goes, people were walking up to me and they were telling me that's my story. And I have a thing when I keynote speak, I say, if you can relate to anything I'm saying, say.
I also want to add too, because I know a lot of you are not going to have support when it comes to you speaking your truth. When I first started speaking my truth, I didn't have support. I was judged. I even had an uncle that judged me for speaking my truth on my platform. And if I'm being honest, it was weird being judged by an uncle that's never really been there for you. And so I guess you could say shots are fired, but I will never forget when he reached out to me. He was like, oh, like that's such a bad look for you to put that on your YouTube channel and da-da-da. And I'm like, it's weird coming from the person that was never there for me. It's weird. And that's the thing. It's like, people want to make it about themselves and they care so much about what people think. But like, what did you do for me? Did you help me? You didn't. So how do you have a right to say what I can say and what I cannot say when you didn't even help? And then the crazy thing was the things that I said, because there was a video, and it's on my Patreon. And it was, I did a video about daddy issues, and I spoke my truth about that. And that's the video that I privated because I got so much hate from certain family members. And the only thing that they cared about was what it looked like. But what the fuck did I say? And that's the thing. It's like, this is why when you reach a certain age, you have to start doing things for yourself. You can't care, because it's crazy how people can listen to you being abused, how people can listen to you being hurt, how people can listen to you be neglected. And the only thing they care about is, what will people think? What will people think? That's it. They don't care how you have PTSD. They don't care how you have trauma now and you have to carry that around. They don't care how you feel. And it's like, do you love me? Because it seems like you care more about what other people think, but did you not hear what I actually said? And that's the thing. It's like, you're not going to always get support. You're not. And this is why, like, with success, you know, success is so funny to me. Success is so funny to me because now people want to congratulate you, right? But when you were speaking your truth and you didn't have the success, your story was still being written. They weren't supportive. And see, that's what I'm saying is like, people get mad when you speak your truth, but that's how they chose to show up. That's how they chose to respond. And that doesn't have anything to do with you. So success, you know, it's so funny, but it's like, I like it when it comes to success and people want to congratulate you, it's so fake. It's fake. I remember that I know the people that were really in my corner. I know the people that were really supporting me with what I was doing. I know the people that understood the vision I had. And even the people that didn't understand the vision I had, they still supported me though. But I remember those that did everything they could to talk me out of it. And that's how they decided to show up. And that's also part of my testimony. So you won't always have the support in the beginning. You won't always have the support when it comes to you speaking your truth. You won't. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't speak it though. It just doesn't. So I'm just here to tell you that mine was a little bit different. You know, people support me now. Family support me now because I have 250,000 subscribers. But when I didn't have big numbers like this, they didn't support it. And I'll never forget that. But that's my testimony. That's part of my truth. And that's the thing is, you can't stop yourself from doing what you feel is best for you based off of the vision God gave you, simply because others don't support it or others don't understand it. It's not meant for them to understand. God gave you the vision. God didn't give them the vision. So they're not going to get it. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't pursue it. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't go through with it. So you're not going to always get the support. It's nice to hear that Dr. Bryant was able to get that support, but that's not going to be the reality for all of us. Some of us are lone wolves. Like some of us are black sheep. Some of us are on this journey alone. And just because, and then it's crazy. It's like, now that you gain a little success, now all of a sudden you have people that want to be there for you, but don't ever forget where you came from. And don't ever forget the people that were really there when you didn't have anyone else.
Talk dog. When I start talking about mom on drugs, everybody in there said talk dog, whether they were a child who had experience with a parent who was addict or a parent who had did it.
Wow.
And it just caused healing for everybody. And from that allowed, me and my mother have always been close, but it gave us an intimacy that we never had, that we thought we had. And her giving me that okay to heal, even though I was going to do it anyways, but I wanted her blessings, but I was going to do it anyways because I knew I had to.
Yeah.
And I knew I was willing to feel the guilt and feel the pain of whatever came with it.
Yeah.
And I remember my father saying, baby, like, how do you think your mom felt about that? And I said, Daddy, she's cool with whatever I got to do. And so
how did he feel about it?
My dad was a little more in the guilt space where you are now. Always wanting to protect my mom.
Yeah.
And make sure that she didn't have to feel her pain.
Yeah.
At the expense of me telling her story.
Yeah.
And that's really what you're protecting your family from, is them feeling the pain of their reality. And it's because you know what that pain feels like. And you look at it like you would be projecting that onto them, which is your people-pleasing illusion. Well, you can't project onto them what they already created. That's their stuff. And so you telling your truth just makes them look in the mirror at who they really are. That is the first steps to healing. So to know that you have the key, which is the power to do that.
Jesus. Okay, don't put the pressure.
It's a big responsibility.
God.
You know? And so I'm just excited for when you do.
But do you see how B. Simone became a people-pleasing child? Like, the little girl in her is a people pleaser, right? But do you see how her family groomed her to be that? Because it was all about, well, what will people think? What will people think? What will people think? What will people think? What will they say? But do you see how it's put her in this position now where she feels like she can't even speak her truth because she has to be concerned not only with her speaking her truth and how she will be judged, but even her own family won't support her speaking her truth because of what it will look like and what it will mean. And that's the thing, is like, people pleasing, a lot of the times it comes from a false identity. It's not truly who we are. And it's only based off of our conditioning. It's only based off of how we were raised. It's only based off of how we were disciplined and the boundaries that we were told. Sometimes people pleasing comes from that. It's not even coming from self based off of identity. So she's also in a false identity with self, and it's all because of how she was raised. So people pleasing is not really who she is.
Do it. God, I gotta do another thing. And another, it's like God called somebody else. I got a sister.
Stop calling me, right?
Jeez. Can anybody else do it?
Right? I want to ask, with whatever happened with mom, and I know we're not going there.
Yeah.
With whatever happened, have you had that conversation with your dad as far as how did that affect him?
So I talked about this publicly. I wrote my dad a letter. Like, I'm 34. My birthday was in April. My birthday was April 5th. That was my 34th birthday. And before my birthday, I was like, I am not going into another birthday without telling my dad, without expressing to my dad my experience growing up.
Wow.
We never had that conversation. It just kind of like didn't talk about stuff, brushed stuff under the rug.
And your dad's a pastor.
He's a pastor.
Still.
Yeah. Wow. He's a pastor in Columbus, Ohio. I kind of, in my senior year, I was like, I don't want to live here anymore. And I left, and we just never talked about it again.
Wow.
It was just like, okay, cool. Like, if you leave, there's peace, and there could just, everybody can be happy, and da-da-da-da. But we just never discussed it. Like, I never expressed my experience in that house growing up with him, like, from my POV, you know? Right. So I wrote him a letter. I read the letter, and my dad is just the sweetest. Like, he was so open. He was so receptive. He was so, just created a safe space for me to express myself.
You said he cried, huh?
I don't think I've ever seen my dad cry. And he was about to like, but he stopped. So I don't even know if a tear fell. Like, his eyes were watering, but like, he didn't like boo-hoo. I don't think I've ever seen my dad cry. Right. So it was emotional. You know, I wrote a letter, and then, like, you know, he apologized.
What were some of the key things you said to him? What were some of the messages you really wanted him to receive from that letter?
Letting him know that, I didn't just move on. Like, everything's not just okay. Like, okay, that happened 10 years ago, and and everything's fine now. You're an adult. You're good. Like, the things that happened in my childhood, I'm still dealing with today. So I was like, if my dad passed away, or if I never had this conversation, or if I never opened up to him about my experience as a child, I would regret it so bad. Right, just wanting him to know, whether it, like you said, being brave. I went into it like, it doesn't matter what his reaction is. I'm reading this letter and I'm saying it. Right. So that's the same concept with telling my story. Like, it doesn't matter the reaction, just I'm doing it for me. Right. I wanted to release and let him know, like, this affected me. This didn't make me feel good. I, went through this experience. Like, all of those things, I was so open, and I had never expressed it to him before.
Who divorced who? With mom and dad?
I don't know.
What was the cause of the divorce? I know, but can we talk about that openly?
No. See? No.
Not even that?
No.
Okay. Okay. I won't poke. No. Okay. So I know the cause.
Yes,
you know the cause. Talk about it. So has he ever expressed, whether it was that time that you were reading this letter to him, or ever, the effects on him for the reason they divorced?
See, no. He's never opened up about that.
Did he ever go get help for that?
Not that I know of. No. So it's like the brushing under the rug.
So he showed up every Sunday for church and preached every Wednesday for Bible study. He showed up and started to do marriage counseling with folks, individual counseling. I mean, he's a pastor.
Wow.
That's what pastors do. At
Wow.
the pit of pastoring and doing what I do as a doctor, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
For changing lives.
Yeah.
He showed up to do all that and praise God and teach faith and teach principles, all while I'm sure he was questioning, God, where are you in this time?
Wow.
And having to do that. And then overnight become a single father with 2 beautiful little girls.
Wow.
And find a new woman and remarry.
Wow.
And process all that.
Wow. What he was going through.
A lot.
It's a lot.
That's a lot.
It's a lot.
That is so much weight for a man to carry.
It's a lot.
And that's why, like, sometimes when it comes to our relationships with our parents, we don't ever consider their position. And how can you, right? Because you put your parents on this pedestal and you expect for them to be this and to be that. But when it comes to real life situations and scenarios, like, sometimes you have to put yourself in the position of that parent for you to truly understand why you may have gotten poor treatment at certain times, or why you didn't get the love when you needed it at certain times. Like, sometimes you truly do have to put yourself in their shoes to truly understand why you may have experienced neglect, why you may have the trauma that you have. Sometimes it requires you to do that, because sometimes it was never intentional for you to have those experiences, but you do, and you should validate yourself when it comes to them. But sometimes life can be complicated. And once you put yourself in the shoes of your parents, you will understand certain things about them that maybe you didn't get before. And sometimes it takes you growing up and becoming an adult. Sometimes it takes you growing up and becoming a parent. Sometimes it takes you growing up and becoming a mother. Like, sometimes it just depends on what it was, though, because there are some things you can have compassion for. There are some things that you can understand, but then there are some things that you cannot excuse. It just depends on what it is. It depends on what it is. So I'm not sure what they're really talking about, right? But if there was a situation where it was a divorce and kids can only see from their point of view, have you ever put yourself in your parents' shoes to see, like, what they may have been struggling with at that time that may have caused neglect? Because if they can't show up for themselves, how can they show up for their kids? How can you show up for your kids if you can't even show up for yourself? How can you show up as the best parent if you can't even show up as the best for yourself? So it just depends on what it was, what it is, what may have contributed to your trauma, what may have contributed to the neglect. It just depends. And you can't paint this with a broad brush, because this is a large platform. So you have to sit and reflect. And you're an adult now. So you now are out here making choices and decisions. So I think that can be your guide on what you can kind of understand and give compassion about, and what you should. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, I think that could be your guide for what you can accept and what you just refuse to accept, what you feel like you deserve an apology about. It's just based off of your own inner guide. Just depends on what the situation is.
So, Dad, really quick, listen,
Daddy.
Listen, you ain't perfect, but I do want to say thank you, because that weight, burden you carried, and still got up and preached and changed lives and kept the faith. And some days I know you didn't have the faith, but you had to show up in faith. I just want to say thank you.
Thank you, Daddy.
Because that is hard, that is challenging. But listen, you may have not hit all the spots, but you was hitting them and you aimed at them. So I want to say thank you, because that is admirable, especially from what he went through.
And
that's a lot.
And even you just saying that, like, I'm gonna look at you, Daddy, now that you're probably watching this. You might not be, but I love you so much. So much. I think
I agree. I feel like there are going to be some things that you cannot excuse, but then there are going to be some things that you can understand. It just depends. But again, some of you may struggle with this because you're still struggling with people pleasing. Because as a people pleaser, we make a lot of excuses for people, and that's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying at all. So I think if you fix the people pleasing and heal people pleasing, then you'll be able to address this head on and from a better place. But no, like, you may be in your villain area. You may be at the point where you just stepped into your villain area and you're not excusing shit. You haven't developed in this space yet for you to even be able to do that. So maybe you're just at this point where you don't want to excuse anything, right? And that's okay. Or maybe there are some things that you can't excuse because you are an adult and you realize that they have the same choices to make just like you do. So some choices and decisions that your parents make, you can say, I wouldn't have done that to my child. And so that then would be inexcusable, right? So it just depends. And again, you have to sit with yourself and figure out what that looks like. I'm not here to tell you what that is, but you may not even be at that space where you can understand your parents' position. You may be at the space where you're trying to hold them accountable. And so that's okay. Be in that space first. You have to do things in steps. You can't just do things quick and just think you're done. Like, you have to do it in steps. Maybe you're at the stage of confronting them about your childhood. Then maybe you can get to the accountability part. Then maybe you can get to the understanding part in the areas that you feel you can be compassionate about. But then there are going to be areas that are just inexcusable because you are an adult now and you have the same choices and decisions that they have. And then you can determine what is excusable and what is not. And then some of you don't even have to be adults. Like, some of you could just be mature for your age, wise for your age, and you just know better. And so there are just some things that are just inexcusable. But again, that's based off of your own guide, like based off of your own principles, morals, and beliefs. It's not based off of me. It's not based off of how I feel, because it's not my neglect. It's not my trauma. It's not my memories. It's not my PTSD. It's not my triggers. It's yours. So you need to figure that out. I'm just here to guide you through that process. That's it. So I'm not sure what that really looks like.
Thank you for every sacrifice you made for me and my sister. I thank you for raising us to the best of your ability to be the loving, beautiful, brave, go-getter woman that I am today. It's because of you. I'm just like you. I'm just like you.
What brings up emotions in you when you say I'm just like you? What parts of being like him makes you emotional?
Because he's just so sweet and so nice. And sometimes, like, what I realized in my adult relationships, I didn't even know how much in bondage I was in until I got out of it. Like, you start to lose yourself. You go down this rabbit hole of people pleasing and losing your personality and your mind and your calmness. Like, now you're anxious, you're depressed. And then once I got out of it, I was like, certain friendships, certain relationships, walking away, letting go of friends and people. I'm like, I haven't whistled in 6 years. Like, right. I am whistling at the airport. Like, I wasn't anxious. I was in bondage. I wasn't depressed. I was in a relationship that didn't allow me to be my full authentic self. And once I got out of it, I was like, this is what true joy feels like. This is what true peace feels like. This is what sleeping at night feels like. Right. So once I got out of it, I was like, what?
It depends on how you view forgiveness. So you can't forgive someone directly or physically who they haven't changed. What are you forgiving? They're not remorseful. The only way you could truly forgive someone to their face is when they are remorseful. But someone that repeatedly carries the same bad behavior, you can't forgive them physically. You can do forgiveness within yourself by changing your perspective. So there are sometimes I do this thing because I am a forgiving woman. The reason why I am a forgiving woman is because that's how I keep myself from being bitter. That's how I keep myself from projecting on other people that have done nothing to me. But when I say I'm a forgiving woman, that forgiveness is not always given through closure. That forgiveness is not always given with me having a sit down conversation. Sometimes that forgiveness is something that I have with God and God only. And that's it. I don't owe people anything, especially when their behavior hasn't changed. I don't owe them shit. But forgiveness is something that I give myself because I don't want to be bitter. I don't want to project and take it out on other people. They haven't done anything to me. So to keep my energy light, I forgive, right? But sometimes that's not always through closure, and sometimes that's not always through a sit down. And sometimes it doesn't even involve allowing these people around me. It doesn't involve me continuously having a relationship with them. Sometimes it's distance. Sometimes I'm never seeing them again. But I forgave them though. So, and the forgiveness is about me. It's not about them. It's not. It's to keep me light on my feet. It's to keep me happy. It's to keep me optimistic. It's to keep me looking forward to what's next. But if I don't forgive, it only blocks me from being able to experience better, greater, more. So I forgive. But like I said, it's not always me allowing them back around me either.
Wow, like I see why people stay, because they're like, oh, I'm happy. You don't even know,
because they learn how to survive in the dysfunction.
You don't even know
And
what
that
you're
becomes
missing.
their norm. That becomes their norm.
And it becomes it becomes okay. You have no idea
It
what
becomes
God
the bar.
has.
It becomes the bar for them. There is no other bar. That's the
Wild.
norm. This is what it is.
Wild.
And that's why, back to the Red Sea, when we get there, it's going to be God's will either way.
Either way.
And so if you stay
Either way.
there too long, just like if you stay in relationships too long, God gives you the opportunity to be obedient. So you don't have to sacrifice.
Yes.
And Connie, now you know what is inexcusable. Now you know what was inexcusable. I talk about growing up in a household with an alcoholic parent, right? And then I found myself struggling with alcohol. And so I can reason with the struggle with alcohol, but I can't reason with the abuse that I endured because of the choice to struggle with alcohol. You know what I'm saying? So I can't reason with the abuse. I can't reason with the verbal abuse. I can't reason with the physical abuse. But I can see how easy it is to slip into a dark place and now you have a bad habit. You know what I'm saying? So it's like I can understand that, but I can't understand the treatment. Like, how can you treat your child like that? How can you abuse your child like that? How can you verbally tear your child down? How can you get mean because you had a drink? I'm not a mean drinker. I wasn't a mean drinker when I was struggling. We all get choices. And so there, like I said, it depends. You have your own guide. You have your own understanding within. And so when it comes to what you can understand is based off of your own choices in life. And so even though I struggled with alcohol, I know how to put the bottle down. Even though I struggled with, I went through a phase where I was drinking a lot. I wasn't going around being mean to people. I kept to myself. And so that's the thing. We all get choices. So some things to me just aren't excusable. It was a choice. It was just a choice. And that's how they chose to show up.
Then he comes in and was sacrificed and pruned that which does not belong there. That is which is not being fruitful and multiplying. So obviously, what I see being said in this space you're in with your healing journey is God saying, you living in your fairy tale is no longer serving you, baby.
It's not.
So if you're not going to be obedient, that's okay. But I will make sure that I start to make sacrificial sacrifices, which is a pruning mechanism. That's good because it pushes us to do what we're supposed to do in alignment with God's will. But that's where it becomes most painful and most dark, because it got to go dark for us to ask for God to show us the light switch. Lead us there. What does that look like? But remember, when you turn the lights on, you see everything. Most people stay in the darkness because they really don't want to see.
Wow.
They really don't want to see, because the last time they seen, their heart was shattered. And so why would I want the lights back on again to experience that?
Leave them off.
Leave them off.
Wow.
So let's stay in the...
I think this is a great point too. Farmhouse, she said, I do not love the people. I do not forgive. I don't have turmoil in my heart for my not forgiving. But see, I can be bitter. I don't know about, see, and that's the thing. If I don't forgive people, I will be bitter, a bitch, miserable, spiteful, and I will come after you and be vengeful, revengeful. And so that's what I'm saying. It's like everybody's different. Okay, my ruling is Mars. When you do something to me, I want blood. And I mean that. Like, I really mean that, though. I really mean that, because you hurt me. And that's what people don't understand. It's like, because I'm nice, people don't think I can be that way. But when you piss me off, I can very much be that way. And so I have to forgive. I have to be a forgiving person, because I can really harm, I can really hurt people, like in a really bad way. So if I don't forgive, I will be that person. And so that's why I choose to forgive. But if you don't take it there and you have more self-control and you can operate from a place where you don't have to forgive and you don't harbor these really bad feelings where you want to hurt people, then That's your process. But my process, I have to forgive, because if I don't, I will think about it. It will piss me off. I'll think about it, and then it will just make me mad all over again. And then I want to hurt people. I used to do this thing when I was younger. When someone did something to me, I would be super spiteful. Like, I would actually go after them, and they wouldn't even know that I was after them. Like, I would fuck with them. Like, I would fuck with their head. I would fuck with the shit. Like, I would be so petty because I was getting my lick back. And I was very revengeful. And so I had to learn forgiveness because it was turning me into a person that I did not like. And it's so easy to become the people that hurt you. And it could be justice, right? Where you're getting your lick back and you're getting your revenge. But who is it really turning you into, though? So I choose forgiveness for this reason. I'm not choosing this forgiveness because of them. I'm choosing this forgiveness to save myself from becoming someone that I don't want to be. Deep down, I don't want to be the people that hurt me. I don't want to be the people that did this to me. Things can get very dark for me if I don't forgive. And I know that now. Before, I would cause destruction in my life. Before, I would sabotage. And so now that I know that this is something that I struggle with, I am a forgiving woman because I have a choice. I can be a forgiving woman, or I can be a bitter woman. I can be a forgiving woman, or I can be a revengeful woman. I can be a bitter woman, or I can be the woman that is always destroying things because someone pissed her off. It just depends. So I get where you're coming from, but some of us, when someone hurts us, we want to hurt them. And in some cases, we want to hurt them in the same way that they hurt us because it makes us feel better. But forgiveness is just it's an enlightening way to go about someone hurting you. And being vengeful, being bitter, being spiteful, being passive aggressive, being physical even is a dark way. And so I choose the light. And that's the thing. It's like we all get choices, but maybe things don't get that dark for you when people hurt you or when people do you wrong. Maybe it doesn't get that dark, but for some people, I don't know about y'all, it can get very dark for me. It could get very dark, very, very, very dark. So it just depends. And I think it's because I'm a very sensitive person. And I think when someone hurts me, it's like, I think it's also because I'm genuine. So when people do me a certain type of way, and when they do me in a way that I would never do them, it really angers me, y'all. It angers me. It doesn't anger me because I was genuine, because that's just who I am. It angers me that they would do me in a way that I would never do them. And that pisses me off. That pisses me off so bad. Like, it makes me very angry. So I have to forgive. Like, I do. I have to. But I don't always have to forgive and allow that person back in. I don't always have to forgive to that person's face. When people do me wrong, I never give them closure, ever. I let them stay dark like they had me by not giving them closure. So to a certain degree, I'm still a little spiteful, but I'm still sparing them, though. I'm sparing them.
Lights off dysfunction. Let's stay in the lights off people-pleasing relationships. Keep the lights off, I just won't whistle. Keep the lights off, I just won't have my happy. Wow. In fear of what I've already seen. No. But then God also says, call those things that you see as though they are what you'd have them to be. But how do you call anything that you're in the dark of? You can't see. You can't. So being in the dark you're at a total disadvantage. Yeah. Because you can't call a thing what you want it to be if you don't see a thing. Yeah. If you're in these relationships where you see nothing, it's the norm. Yeah. It's about being able to sit in the truth with the lights on, take inventory of what's in the damn room, and say this, that has to go. Mm-hmm. And if I gotta feel a certain way for a while, that's just what fine. It is. Because one thing about feelings for sure.
And you know what's crazy about this whole forgiveness thing? It's also part of my human design. I'm a projector. So if I don't heal, I'm just going to project bitterness. That's it. If I don't forgive, and that's the thing, part of my healing has to be forgiveness, because if I don't, I will just project bitterness. And then some of you watched me do it on my channel. Some of you watched me do it. So you've watched me be bitter and project on my YouTube channel. You've watched me do it. It can be very nasty. So my forgiveness is part of my healing, and it has to be that way because of my human design. And if I'm not forgiving, I'm not healing, then I'm just projecting nothing but bitterness, misery. And who wants to deal with that? Who wants to be around that? How can anything new and great and amazing come into my life if I'm just going to continuously project bitterness and misery because I refuse to heal and forgive? And part of my healing is letting go of the situation, letting go of the person. It's not really like, oh, I don't feel like they did anything wrong. No, I can acknowledge my forgiveness is I can acknowledge that they did me wrong. But I don't have to keep being mad about it. I was mad and now I'm letting it go. That's what forgiveness is for me. And so I have to be that way. Like my forgiveness is really letting the situation go, letting the person go, letting the hurt go, letting the disappointment go, letting the sadness go, letting the anger go, letting even the resentment that I ended up getting go. Because I felt like, well, why would they do me like that? And I wouldn't even do them like that. So I had resentment towards them now. So my forgiveness is really me simply letting go. Just letting go. Letting go. My forgiveness is not forgetting though.
Or they fluctuate. They come and they go. They're not going to be there forever, good or bad. And feelings are what people fear the most. When if you stay in the dark, you still going to feel different things.
Right. You still going to feel it. It's like choose your hard. The dark is hard. Going to the light is hard.
But the light gives you a place where you can now have freedom. You can now create.
Have freedom.
Dark just gives you nothing.
Hamster wheel.
That's all you're doing.
Okay.
And then you gaslight everybody who's been trying to help you get to the light because you're asking most time for us, for me, because God, where you at?
And see, the darkness, that's what they don't say is the darkness is a hamster wheel. And I will never forget when I found myself in a very dark cycle and I was very angry, very spiteful. And the only thing I was doing was ruining my own life. I was ruining my own life. And I was putting so much energy in trying to hurt the people back that hurt me. I was ruining my own life. And then I was stuck. I was stagnant. And so I joke about, everyone has the auntie in the family that's bitter and nothing new has happened in their life. And it's because they're stuck and da-da-da. And it's because, well, they haven't let the situation go. They keep bringing it up. And, they keep telling the same story. They keep telling the same story that they were talking about when you were like 10, 11, 12. They still talking about that now. And you're 20, 30 years old. And that's what I'm saying. It's like you have a choice. You can let it go, or you can allow it to destroy you. You can allow it to ruin you. You can allow it to ruin your life. You get a choice in it, though. You get a choice in it. So no, things, when you allow things to get dark, you're in a dark room, you can't see, you're in a dark cycle, you can't see, and there's no light. There's no light. And when there's no light, nothing can grow. Nothing new can come in. And that's why you want to keep yourself from getting in spaces of darkness where it's just a dark cycle. Even when it came to my villain era, I had to come back because I felt like it was getting to a point where it was getting too dark. And that's the thing. It's like in life, you always have to create balance. Because my villain era it was getting very dark. And I had to kind of balance it out a little bit because my anger was fueling this villain era, but it was getting to a point where it was at that line where, okay, this is great and everything, but how dark are you allowing this to go? Because if you go any further, you will become the people that hurt you. You will become the people that did you wrong. So how far do you want to go with this? How far do you want to go? And then you're going to be back to square one in a dark cycle. And it's like you're defeating the purpose of the villain era. So make sure that when you're in your villain era, and yes, enjoy it. Because I know I did. I cut my hair off and everything. Enjoy it, right? But don't allow it to get too dark. Remember that in this life, for you to be successful and for you to master self, you have to have balance. That is true alignment. If you don't have balance, you're not in alignment. So just make sure you keep that in mind, because I came to that crossroad as an ex-people pleaser.
I've been praying. So I said, but I've sent this person. I've sent Dr. Bryant to come help you put the light switch on, to help you tell the story when you're ready, of course. B, you're at the Red Sea. I parted it.
Yeah.
Take the walk.
Yeah.
Turn the light on.
Yeah.
What are some of the things you feel you were, or you still are afraid of seeing? Because you still with the light off and you dim it, you try to dim it. But God's like, baby, there's no lukewarm.
Oh, okay. I didn't even medium on.
You trying to do it.
You're trying to do it. You dim the switch. But you know the switch where you dim it. Mood?
You dim it. You dim it. You're like, ooh. Then when you get a peek, you're like, lights off.
You're right.
Close the door. Close the door.
Okay.
But what are those things you feel like you're afraid to see? You're afraid to face, that when the lights come all the way on, and what if you turn them on and you see nothing but everything you've always wanted to see?
For sure.
Because when I turn mine on, say with my mom or just in life, I seen everything I always wanted. I was like, God, I would have turned the lights on. He said, no, don't. God said, don't.
Yeah,
don't.
I've been told, yep.
Just sit in your light.
It's always like that though, with every difficult thing I've ever done in my life, walking away from relationships that I was scared to walk away from, friendships, moving, every single time I turn the light on, it's like, I should have been did this because the reward is so great. The freedom is so great. The blessings that come after it is so great. So I know it's coming.
Let me ask you this. In what ways are you like mom?
That's a good question. And honestly, I need to learn her a lot more, be around her a lot more. She's very gentle, very kind, God-fearing, intercessor for sure. Like, I feel like I get a lot of my spiritual, even though my dad is a pastor, but like my mom is like, she went on me the last year about paying tithes. I said, Mama, okay, I paid the tithes. Okay, but very just like spiritual, so rooted in God. I feel like I get a lot of that from her. Like she's very stern too, like a little direct. And what I say, I'm like that in certain relationships,
right?
Not in those,
like with your sister,
like with my sister or certain friends. Like Cheyenne, my friend, was like, I was like, I don't know how to speak up for myself. She's like, girl, you tell me no all the time. I'm like, well, you've created a safe space for me to be that. So it's like with people that I feel like I have to people please, I just do it.
Because that space isn't safe.
It's not safe.
I was talking about that earlier with one of my managers, Shanta. I was saying that when you create a safe space for somebody, you get the good and the bad from them.
Yes.
And so you've got to take it as, wow, this person's safe enough with me for me to see all of them.
All of them.
That's a privilege.
That's
a privilege.
good.
That's not something to look down upon.
Yeah.
Now you can come in and say, hey, when you're in the bad, can we set boundaries there? Because it triggers me a little bit.
Yeah.
You can be there, but can it look like this? Or give me better understanding of what that means so I don't personalize it.
Okay.
But safe spaces are where we can be all of who we are.
Okay.
We don't have to temperature check to see where we got to people please to codependently get you into this space so that now I'm safe. So I got to work you to be safe with you.
Wow.
And I was saying to her, she has this natural gift where people will be just safe with her. And sometimes it can come off as they're being taken advantage or being bitchy or rude, but you're allowing them their freedom. And that's actually beautiful that you allow that.
Yeah.
But can you facilitate it right at that level with them?
Okay.
Right. And so with you, what are some of the things that you want to know about your mom? You said, I want to learn her more. What do you want to learn more? And I'm not going to say, what do you want? I want to ask this section I get to. Have you had the conversation about her and her health issue? What caused it?
We've talked about it.
Openly?
Yeah.
Have you asked her to tell you the story or why or what?
No, not that deep. No. I haven't gone that deep with it. I've talked to like my aunt about it. Like, tell me like what you remember. Tell me this, her sister.
Right.
But yeah, I haven't gone like the deepest, like asking every single question.
In building this intimate relationship based on the reality of what you can have, not your fairy tale mimosas and traveling the world.
Right.
What do you want that to look like? And what do you want to know about her that would give you that closeness, that feel, that mommy and daughter relationship? Within the reality of her boundaries.
Okay, within the reality. Wow. I'm like, everything I'm saying, thinking of it, I'm like, no. I mean, I think it starts with conversations, like just deep conversations, which I don't think she's ever opposed to. It's usually me. Like when I get too deep, I get emotional or I get triggered.
What's wrong with your emotions? You don't have a good relationship with them? You don't trust them? They just haven't served you?
Yeah.
But what's wrong with being emotional with a mom that you want to have an intimate relationship with?
Yeah. Just like every time I'm crying.
And?
Okay.
And?
Okay.
Look.
And it's crazy because a lot of times, like we yearn for we yearn for relationships to be a certain way, but we don't even know how we block ourselves off from having that. And so she wants that emotional connection with her mother, but then she doesn't allow herself to be emotional. And it's like, well, you can't have it both ways. If you want that emotional connection and relationship with your mother, you have to open yourself up to that. But if you're going to guard yourself and block yourself off from that, well, the idea that you have doesn't even match what you're willing to give. And so that could be part of the issue as well. You have to open up yourself. If you want that emotional connection with your mother, and you think she's at a place in her life now where she's a safe person to be emotional with, then you got to do your part and open yourself up.
she created this.
Okay.
With all due respect.
Yeah.
I'm saying, Mom, you created this.
Okay.
Yeah. So what's wrong with her sitting in what she created with you?
Okay. And just having those moments.
You created it.
I think I avoid it more than, sitting in it.
Because you're trying to protect her from what you believe she can't handle. But I want to say this, and I love you, but you got to dissipate that arrogance, that indirect subconscious arrogance of you thinking less of your mom, that she can't handle her baby coming to her with emotions, with the conversation.
Okay.
This woman's God-fearing.
Yep.
What can she not? She can handle a conversation. She can handle some emotions, and she can handle what she created. Another thing I want you to think about, I know we got to wrap as far as time, but I want you to start to remind yourself that whatever somebody create, i.e. our parents, they have an obligation to sit in what they created. Okay, you go have a garden and plant all these weeds and allow rodents to come in here, and then you want to tell them no.
I feel like sometimes religion and church doesn't allow you to be real. And I talked about this on my TikTok. The way church and religion is taught to us to be perfect. Like we have to be good. And so when you're good, you don't have problems. When you're good, you don't have trauma. When you're good all the time, because you're not a sinner, right? You don't have issues. So sometimes the church and religion blocks us from being able to address these things because we can't be bad. Bad is trauma. Bad is issues. Bad is all of these things, right? Or, the church also used to be very toxic for me because they used to always be like, oh, just pray it away. Oh, just go talk to God about it. And that was never enough for me. Like that didn't really do anything for me. I needed real healing. And real healing meant confronting the person that hurt me, opening up and letting the person know that hurt me about the trauma that I have because of what they did. And confronting the issues head on instead of going and talking to God about it. That wasn't enough for me. So I do, religion can be toxic for people. And it seems like a lot of people want to ignore that because, again, when you ignore issues, then the only thing that can exist are no issues, good things, great things. You're fine. You're not depressed. You're not depressed. You're not suicidal. You're not anything. You're good. You don't have trauma. You don't have issues. You don't have PTSD. You don't have any of that because you have God. You have religion. You have church. You have family. You're good. Nothing's wrong with you. It can be exhausting.
Stay over there in the rose garden while I sit over here with rodents and weeds that you created. See, that's not fair. It's not fair to you. No, everybody gonna come over here with the rodents and the weeds. And we're gonna sit in this thing together. And we're gonna smell the dog shit and the possum poop. We're gonna sit in this. Mosquitoes are here too.
Wow.
Do you see what you created? Sit in this with me for a minute.
Wow.
Let's have this conversation. Oh, you getting bit? I know.
Wow.
Mosquitoes, huh?
Right.
You hate the smell? I know. 34 years. 34 years. 34 years. Oh, the dog bit you? I forgot to tell you. The pit bull bite.
That's wild.
Sit in it with me though. Right? Oh, the snake.
I also want to bring up to my people pleasers, right? When people would do you wrong and you didn't want to confront them, how did you feel towards them? Because I remember when I was younger and I was a people pleaser, and when people would do me dirty and I would be done wrong, but I never confronted them, I would hold it against them. Like I would hold it against them. And so I would start to lash out and I would start to be mean towards them. And it was because I never confronted them about how they made me feel or how I felt. So I would just be funny towards them, but I never would actually tell them, hey, you did this to me. Hey. Or I would go home and I would be angry and I would be mad and I would think about all the things that I should have said or I should have done. Free yourself. That's when you come out of this people pleasing, you are freeing yourself, literally, because then you don't have to have anxiety about what you wish you would have said or wish you would have done. You did it.
Snake. Oh, it got bit him. Girl, you probably just died to bite you. But sit in this with me. 34 years I've been here. 34 years. You gonna spend the weekend? How long you gonna stay, Mom? How long you gonna stay, Dad? How long can you stay with me in what you created? See, so what I admired most about my mother is still to this day, and she's sober. She's a powerhouse. She's killing it. But my mom, I haven't had to ask. She would jump in and would not leave me in my pain. She'll be in there bawling her eyes out, trying to figure it out. And she's like, I just got bit by the dog. The snake just bit me. I got venom. I'm having an allergic reaction.
I'm here with you though.
His bear is coming.
Yep.
You know, there's another possum. And she's not asking how long. She done bought all her stuff and unpacked it right there with me and said, well, baby, if we here. Okay. Get the shotgun. We got to kill the bear. Not saying that every parent would do that, but it doesn't mean because they won't that they're not responsible for you bringing them into the mess they created. Let them sit in their stuff because you're doing them a disservice when you don't.
Okay.
Sitting in that gives them a reality check. And then it allows them to actually heal because they can't heal in a rose bush that is a fairy tale. And rose bushes and those don't need healing.
Okay.
It's fake over there because it's perfect. Put them in the environment they created. It's theirs before you came.
Yeah.
So they're very familiar with it. And if you don't think that they don't sit in it by themselves at times, especially dad, they do. And they create, like you did, an environment in their mind that helps them think that the dog didn't poop and that the bear is not there and that the pit bull didn't bite him. Illusion. So they patching. I'm okay. No, you're not. You got rabies. Go to the hospital.
Jesus.
Detox it. Do you see what I mean?
Yes.
So start to work on being more open about inviting people into their shit. That they are trying to create the fairy tale that it doesn't
exist. Yep.
Because it does.
Yep.
All of ours does.
Yep.
And then that helps you guys collectively start to put things in place. And an unattended garden attracts rodents and weeds anyway. So if you don't attend, either way.
Okay.
The only way it gets better is to go in, take inventory, plow out, and redo.
Okay.
And it's not as hard as we believe it is. It's actually harder in that.
Yeah.
Like you just said, versus coming out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
You just have to take that leap of faith. And I told you, I'm here. I'm gonna hold your hand through it. And then sometimes you're gonna be at the edge and you're gonna feel me go. And
I'm like, all right, don't
yeah,
okay. I was gonna jump.
There you go.
I was gonna jump.
Yep.
Give me a second. I need some water.
And when I push you in the water, you're gonna be like, life jacket, doc. I'm like, you got it. Kick, baby, kick it. I'm kicking.
Oh my gosh.
You got our next session. I know, right? But I first want to ask you, like I do in our sessions, like, how do you feel after this conversation?
And that's why, that's why y'all, I get triggered when people be so quick to forgive and they haven't even processed what the person did, how it affected them, the emotions that came with what they did. They haven't even processed anything, but they're quick to forgive. And it's like, you're just a people pleaser. That's it. You're just a people pleaser. You didn't even process how they made you feel. You didn't even process what they did and how that made you feel based off of what they did. And you didn't even process what they did to a point of trying to understand how hurtful it was or how it made you really feel. You just forgave. That is people pleasing. And that's why forgiveness has such a bad reputation, because a lot of people don't even allow themselves to process things fully before they forgive. So a lot of people think that when I say I'm a forgiving woman, that I just forgave. No, I was mad as hell for like a year and a half. I didn't even get to the forgiveness part until like a year and a half later. And then I had to do so much to even get to that point of forgiveness. And I had to keep playing over and over in my head what they did, how I felt, how it made me feel before I could even get to that point. So that's why forgiveness has a bad reputation. And I completely understand why people don't even want to forgive, because for some people it's enabling, it's people pleasing, it lacks accountability. When I forgive people, it takes time. It takes a lot of time. I just eventually reach a point of forgiveness so that I can let it go. I try not to stay in that place where I don't want to forgive them, because then I can't move on. I can't let it go, because I'm going to keep bringing up how they hurt me, what they did, how it made me feel, and the emotions that are associated with that. So I reach eventually a level of forgiveness, and it takes time so that I can let it go. Because if I don't let it go, I'm going to keep thinking about what they did. If I don't let it go, I'm going to keep thinking about how I feel about what they did and how it made me feel in the moment when they did it. So when I say forgiveness, I'm not talking about somebody goes and does you wrong, and then you're like, I forgive you. That's not real forgiveness. That's people pleasing. That's not you knowing your self-worth. That's not even you having self-respect, because you allowed this person to disrespect you and then you forgave them immediately. That's not even real. That's fake. And then when you do that, you enable people's bad behavior, because now they're looking at you like, oh, you a fool. You forgave me. I can abuse you again. Oh, you a fool. You forgave me. I can do you the same way I did you, but probably do you worse. That's why you don't want to be a people pleaser, because people don't respect you. So when I talk about forgiveness, I'm talking about it could take me years. It could take me years. I'm not talking about they did something and then I forgave. No, that's not how it works. That's people pleasing.
And what are you going to do different moving forward? What are you committing to doing differently moving forward?
I feel so proud of myself. Like, I know I'm not fully where I know I know I will be. I know I will be. Like, I already know, like, I'm going to get there, but I'm proud of myself because I'm so committed.
You are
to all of this. Like, I'm trying to take accountability. I'm trying to heal. I'm trying to get the tools. I'm not just okay with like this anymore, you know? And I honestly feel like I never was okay with this. That's why I moved from Atlanta to Dallas. That's why I chased my dream. That's why I'm always like trying to unpack and see, even though it's scary. I was talking about this with the therapist that I was telling you about. I had been going to therapy for a year, and like, I'm scared of what's going to happen if I stay opposed to what's going to happen if I go. So I always go, whether it's with my mental health, whether it's with financial risk, whether it's with, like, I always go. So I know.
Can we change that?
Yeah.
To trusting if I stay or if I go, it becomes a choice and not fear-based.
Yeah. Trusting. Yeah. Trusting.
Like, God, wherever you put me, God, I'm good.
Yes.
If you have me here, I'm good.
I'm good.
If we pivot, I'm good.
I'm good.
When I tell my story, I'm good.
Yes.
If I don't tell my story yet, I'm good.
Yeah.
Right? So you start to make decisions from your healthy place, which is called choice.
Okay.
Not from your dysfunction, which is fear.
Okay.
So I want you to be choosing where you're going.
Okay.
Because you want to be there.
Okay.
Not because fear is making you feel like you
I have to make this decision.
Trauma needs.
Got it.
Healthiness wants. You always want to be in a place of want.
Okay.
Not in a place of need.
Okay.
You won't tell your story now because you need to protect your family. That is your trauma telling you, I wish you would. I wish you would. You're going to blow this whole thing. When you move out of that, you're going to tell the story because you want to.
And I want to heal. And I want to. Yeah.
Those are two different
things.
Parts of you, which are always going to be in you. We learn to manage our dysfunction and we learn to thrive in our healing place. You'll never be able to survive in healing because healing is it's a place. It's a thriving place you arrive to. But all of your fabric, like this blanket, depending on how you put the blanket on you, that's what will touch in your feel. You have to learn to identify, oh, I'm in my dysfunction. Hold on. Let me manage it and move it and choose from my healthy place.
That's a different level of awareness.
But you getting there. You definitely getting there.
Yeah. Thank you.
I'm so proud of you. This was so good.
This was nuts.
This was so good.
Whole episode gonna be 15 minutes. I'm just kidding. I loved this episode. It's so needed. And this is step one of me getting to that point. Like, I'm so proud of this. I'm so glad you were able to. First 3 minutes. She be know what you're doing. I'm a psychiatrist, boy, I tell you. How does that make you feel?
That's what we crazy ourselves. We've been through so much trauma. We're like, oh, I see that in me. I see that in me. I see that in me.
Right.
That's
wow.
True. Yeah.
I'm just so grateful for you. Our private session was just phenomenal. This was hopefully a episode, I know it is, that can touch somebody out there with, I always say my podcast is my virtual diary. Right. So every episode I'm healing and writing and releasing in hopes of somebody reading my diary and being able to relate and heal and go on their own journey. So
and you're changing lives.
Yes.
And when she tells y'all
you're
this
like,
story,
this is nuts. It's nuts.
If it's not me sitting in here to facilitate it, I'm going to be in the room because it is going to change lives. It is going to heal her and everyone who hears it. It is a beautiful, unique, and in her words, absolutely crazy story.
Crazy.
But it's like, wow, it's a wow factor.
I can't wait. Let's try this again story.
It is a I said that in session.
Literally. Yeah. Literally. A story of resilience and second chances, baby.
The epitome.
That's interesting. I wonder what it's about. Okay, I wanted to show y'all this video before we go. This video is about, I forget, your villain error, getting out of your own way.
Something that he can't. Why are villains so important to our creative unfolding? The villain teaches the hero something that he cannot learn from his teachers. The villain demonstrates integrity, commitment, discipline.
Why is no one ready?
While the hero's teachers merely demonstrate talent. Villains are unapologetic. Villains show up on time. Imagine Darth Vader doing a half-assed job at anything. Imagine Maleficent procrastinating. She would never. But you, on the other hand, Imagine a villain getting an idea and then being like, I can't do this. The villain gets a little dinged up and will laugh straight in your face. Villains will be like, I didn't think you had it in you. Between the hero and the villain is the one who is properly emotionally invested. The hero's emotional commitment, if he has one at all, belongs to his younger self, not the person who would go on to master their craft. I think that the best example of this is between the Joker and Batman. Batman always wanted to avenge his parents, helping the police fight crime in the city of Gotham. But the Joker arrives on the scene and forces Batman to confront the question, why on earth would you want to help these people in the system? Look at what the system did to me.
If it was me dying on the sidewalk, you'd walk right over me. I pass you every day and you don't notice me.
And he was right. The villains help the hero grow more refined and sophisticated.
We're so different. Something funny?
I hate to break it to you, but this is you and your art.
Ooh.
You are still thinking about this art stuff the way you did when you were 12. Your process, your self-concept, etc. have not matured. At least this is a lesson from mythology. Another very important point is that villains are kinetic while the hero's teachers are very stagnant. Darth Vader is the one who teaches Luke how to evolve. And again, your art does not need you to learn. It needs you to evolve.
The Force is with you, young Skywalker. But you are not a Jedi yet.
So I created the Villain Challenge. Think 75 hard, but on behalf of your creativity. I completed this with a group of friends this summer, and it kicked all of our asses. So I'm doing it again, and I'm inviting others to join. Essentially, the challenge gets you to embody your villain. Said another way, the challenge is about confronting the fears that are keeping you in your own way. The shame, the blocks, the naivete, etc. So I'm going to get into the rules. If you'd like to follow along, please do. I need the accountability. Drop a comment. Let the algorithm know you intend to stay here and watch me. If you think you might want some accountability and to join the container, I'll share some details about what is included in the container at the end so that you can screenshot. Prep week is October 1st through the 6th, and then we get started officially on Monday the 7th. Space is limited, and I will not accept people who join after the start date of the 7th. So if you have questions about it, drop them in the comments. But I'll just get into the rules. First rule, a daily workout. 35-minute workout every day, no exceptions. Because villains always maintain their bodies perfectly. Why would they not care for the vessel that is the guardian of their gift? 2, 45 minutes plotting every day, which is to say 45 minutes inside of their creativity every single day, no exceptions. It would never happen.
The reason why a lot of people struggle with their inner villain is because you're afraid of your shadow. I'm not afraid of my shadow. I just talked about my shadow. I said that I can be very spiteful. When someone hurts me, I want to hurt them. I'm not afraid of my shadow. And the reason I'm not afraid of my shadow is because I'm in control of my shadow. My shadow does not control me. And I'm capable. No, I'm also aware, self-aware, and I'm capable of understanding my shadow. So I'm in control. The shadow does not control me. So a lot of you are afraid of your villain, because your inner villain, because you don't feel like you have, if you allow the villain to come out, you don't feel like you can control it. You don't feel like you can. And that's what the issue is. Like, we all have an inner villain, because it could be self-defense. That's what your inner villain is. You can't be, you gonna be nice to them after they just disrespected you, or they just hit you, they just slapped you, they just punched you. No, you're not. Everyone has an inner villain. Like, I've even had people say things like, I don't know, there's just something dark about Yoni. Yeah, I have a shadow. I have a shadow. You have a shadow. We all have a shadow. I'm not the type that feels like I gotta hide my darkness. I'm not doing that shit. If you piss me off or you do something to me and I feel like it's disrespectful, I'm going to say something. That's just me. But I don't feel like I have to take it all the way there to the point where I'm doing jail time. I mean, I could, but I'm in control of my shadow. And when it comes to my inner villain, I get to choose when she comes out to play. And then I get to choose when she can't come out and play. And that's the thing. It's like, you don't feel like you have any control over self. And everyone has control over self. Okay? You are an adult. You are not a child. That imaginary friend didn't tell you to do that. And that's what I'm saying. It's like, you just need to accept who you are. You need to accept the good, the bad, the dark, the light. And then you need to create balance. Because when you do that, you're no longer at war with yourself. You are in harmony with self. And that's why I come up here and I'm just be like, yeah, you can see my darkness. I'm not trying to hide it. So let the dark come out. And you need to understand that you are in control. It's not the other way around. It's not. And how do you control your inner villain? Emotional stability. You're not the type where you throw tantrums or you spaz out on people or you go out and you irrationally act out in a way that could land you in jail. Because there have been moments in my life where my inner villain could have came out and I could have completely lost control. But I didn't allow that to happen because I'm in control of my emotions. I'm in control of my behavior. I'm in control of my mouth and the things that comes out of it. So that's what I'm saying. It's like, if you feel like you can't allow your inner villain to come out or you can't allow people to see your darkness, it's because you're afraid of it. That's it. And you need to figure out why. Why are you afraid of it? Do you think you will lose control? Completely lose yourself in the dark?
Villain morning pages, journaling every morning in the voice of your villain. We did this again with my friends this summer, and the shit we came up with to write down was rich. For the villain lair, maintain an impeccable creative space or home every.
All control is self-control. And then all self-control is self-discipline. Do you know when to tell yourself no? Do you know when to tell yourself to stop? Do you know when to tell yourself, okay, that's enough? Do you know when to tell yourself, okay, I need to walk away? Do you know how to read situations and then be like, okay, I assessed the situation, I read the situation. I don't even need to involve myself at all. My villain doesn't even need to come out. And that's the thing. It's like a lot of times the reason why people are afraid of their inner villain is because they lack self-control. And then not only do they lack self-control, they don't have the discipline. So that's why you really fear it. It's not that, and then some of it is not that you don't like this side of yourself. You may love this side of yourself. This side of yourself could really spark some creativity, but you deny yourself of it because you don't have self-control and you don't know how to discipline yourself. Because I will never forget, y'all, this is when I was like, ooh, my self-control is at an all-time high. My discipline is at an all-time high, because I will never forget a man that I was in a relationship with. He had another woman on the other side of his apartment door. And I got to the door and I'm knocking at the door and I can hear a woman on the other side. His neighbor let me in, right? And so that boundary that was there, I was able to get past that, right? So I'm at the door and I'm waiting for him to open up the door and I can hear another woman on the other side. And in that moment, I could allow my inner villain to come out to play, right? Or in that moment, I decided to have self-control. I told myself in my head, I said, walk away. Because if you allow this man to open this door, I don't think you're going to have the same self-control. And that's me understanding myself. That's me reading myself in that moment. Because if he would have opened that door, I would have spent. So the self-control I had was, you need to leave now. You need to walk away. This is not worth it. Are you going to really throw everything away? And that's the thing. It's like, if you don't have these conversations with self, because it involves self-control and self-discipline, then of course you're afraid of your inner villain. Of course. And then sometimes we allow our egos to get the best of us. Because in that moment, my ego could have easily got fed if he would have opened that door and I would have let loose. But I had to check my ego and I had to walk away. And it felt in that moment, it felt like I was tucking my tail. That's what it felt like. And that made me even more mad. So I had to override that. I had to override the ego that led to the anger. And I had to get the hell out of there because I would have lost it. So I left. I walked away. And then I also changed my perspective about it, because I was like, well, I'm removing myself. I'm removing my energy. I'm taking my power back. So I empowered myself, and that fueled my self-control. That fueled my discipline to walk away. So again, sometimes It's not that you're afraid, it's that you're not comfortable and you don't know how to operate when it comes to your villain. That's it. That's it. So trust me, I've been there. Like, y'all, I really have. I've been there. Because I'm telling you, if that man would have opened up that door, y'all, if he would have opened up that door, I know for a fact I would have went to jail that night. I know for a fact they would have been calling the cops. Oh my God, we have a disturbance. Like, I know for a fact my ass would have got locked up that day. I know for a fact.
Single day for the duration of the challenge. Other one, villain purification. Pick a vice and abstain for the entire challenge. For me, this was the most powerful of everything. There is lots written, for example, in Hindu philosophy about the connection between creativity and vices. And I discovered that. Next, daily meditation, 10 minutes every day, no exceptions, because imagine a villain being anything but steady. Finally, villain embodiment. Find or create a scenario in which you can show up as your villain. And again, if you don't have one available to you, you must create one. Ooh. So yeah, like I said, the villain challenge is ultimately shadow work geared specifically towards your creativity, guided by me. I do have several sort of.
And remember, it's so crazy because y'all remember when I did the lunch break conversation, I was like, you need to name your villain. My villain is Ken. It's a she too. And so you have to understand, like, when can Ken show up? When Ken is disrespected. That's when Ken can show up. When can Ken come out to play? When my life is in danger. When someone's trying me. When someone is lying and then trying to gaslight me. That's when she can come out and play. And not only that, it sparks creativity. Have you ever noticed that the villains are very creative? I didn't notice until she mentioned it, but I'm thinking about like the Joker and how he painted his face. Do you see how he used to dress though? He was very like creative, even with the colors and the combinations and everything. Like, villains are actually very creative. And it's interesting too, because when you don't allow yourself to tap into your villain creativity, you are limiting yourself. You're limiting yourself. And creativity can be light, creativity can be dark. But if you only are allowing yourself to be light, you're missing out on this whole other area of creativity because you don't even allow yourself to venture off to that other side. So your villain could be just another persona, honestly, that you can tap into, an energy that you can tap into when necessary. And it's very similar to the villain characters like the Joker, like how he can tap into that energy when necessary. You just got to learn how to do that, like when to be in that and then when not to be, when it's necessary and then when not to be. And it's just like how the superheroes, how they go and they get their costume and they put their costume on to save the day. Well, what about when it comes to you saving yourself because someone is trying you? And now you need to put on the costume and put on your villain because somebody is trying you. They playing in your face. It's very similar. You just got to know when to tap in, when to tap out. You got to know when your suit, your villain is not needed and when it is. That's what it's really about. But you can't be afraid of it though. You're denying yourself of something that is truly a part of who you are.
Vacations in shadow work, in addition to being a lifelong creative.
I like this.
For those who don't know, I'm an opera singer and a writer and other things. But this is shadow work dressed up in the language of myth, because you're an artist and artists need that additional color. And this isn't a cheat code. This is exactly what myths are here to do for us. They are symbols, powerful, durable symbols on which we can project and then learn something about our own path. Okay, so if you're interested or you have questions, drop them in the comments. I can tell you right now that I'm going to be kind, but this is about accountability and execution, and perhaps the most terrifying thing of all of those things, experimentation. You are going to be guided to practice being.
Unfortunately, Miss Tay, in this world, women are called witches, bitches. I mean, at this point, if you still care about that and even being labeled the angry Black woman, I mean, you still, you care too much about being validated by other people. You do. Because when you care more about other people, you are validating them over yourself. And that's the thing. When you're a villain, you don't care about other people. You don't give a damn. You don't care about them. It's about you. It's about you. And so it's not even that, like, Black women we're labeled angry. Other women are labeled witches, bitches, and all type of stuff. I mean, come on. And then other women, when men do manipulative things or they play mind games and things like that, and then the woman responds to the head games or acts out or reacts to the head games, what is she then called? Crazy. So at this point, you just got to accept that you're never going to beat these allegations. And why do you want to? Why do you want to? I mean, when you're the villain, right? And you've seen the villain characters on TVs, were they really trying to beat the allegations? They weren't. They didn't care. They were the villain. And everyone knew. And they would make it on the news and they would get a kick out of it. Like, oh my God, I'm on the news. That's what I'm saying. Like, I think you have to get to a level of detachment when it comes to just not caring. That's what it's really about. So they would get a kick out of it. Like the Joker, he would be on the news and he would be just like, I'm on the news. He was like, this is great. I made the news.
A version of yourself that you are afraid of becoming, which again is exactly what your art needs. Okay, so here's what's included. Take a screenshot. Great. And here's an outline. Take a screenshot. Great. Okay, fantastic. Why are villains so important to our creative unfolding? The villain teaches the hero something that he cannot.
Okay, so for the people pleasers, this could definitely be your shadow work. I'm gonna link her video after I save this, but this is shadow work. Like, this is what it looks like. People always like, shadow work. How do you do the work? How do you do the work? How do you do the work? This is what it means to do the work. So I think you should maybe watch this again or watch this back and like really reflect and write down some things that you feel you need to work on within yourself to make yourself feel more comfortable with being the villain, no longer being the people pleaser, caring so much about what other people think. And also when you care, right, you validate what people say. And then I think you also need to reevaluate your trauma, PTSD, your inner child. Is your inner child happy or is your inner child neglected? Are you neglecting your inner child now that you are an adult? Or have you confronted and addressed your inner child when it comes to some of your earlier experiences? What else can you do when it comes to your shadow work? Another part in your shadow work is, are you allowing yourself to sit in these spaces emotionally when you have a bad memory or you are having a PTSD moment? Are you acknowledging when you are triggered? And are you acknowledging why you are triggered? Because in order for you to stop allowing these things to trigger you, you need to focus on why it's triggering you. Is it an insecurity? Is it trauma? Is it PTSD? Is it making you feel worthless and small? Address these things. This is what it means to do the work, but maybe you need to journal it, write it down so you can actually see it on paper. Like, damn, I need to work on this. I need to correct this. I need to better this. This is how I'm bettering myself. So take time out and really reflect over the things that we discussed in this video. Also, at the end of the day, right, when it comes to creating the version of yourself that you want to be, that's all on you. Okay, that's not on me. So how you choose to navigate this is really on you. I'm just here throwing some ideas out here, maybe helping you, guiding you through this process. But when it comes to you being the version of yourself that you want to be, it's all on you. It's all about what you want to create. Also, when it comes to the mother womb, right? It's all about you wanting to create that relationship, no longer going off of the fantasy and the idea that you have in your mind, but allowing whatever you've been given in this lifetime when it comes to having a mother. What can you do with that? And then are you even able to do anything with it? Because the sad reality is this is a large platform and some of you can't have relationships with your mother. She's too toxic. And that's just me being real. I'm blessed to be able to say, out of all the things that I talked about in the section of the mother womb part of this video, I can have a relationship with my mother. But there are some of you that will never be able to have that relationship with your mother. And that's something that I think you need to sit in and process emotionally. Because If not, you may go out and look for that in other people in unhealthy ways. Like maybe you cling to your friends and you rely on them in ways that's unhealthy. And you may push people away with how clingy you are in friendship when you do that. So there are some things that you may need to confront within yourself. But if you don't learn anything from this video, allow yourself to sit in that emotion. Don't stop yourself from crying. Because it starts to make, whenever I start to feel things, it starts to make me uncomfortable. Like when I start to think how something makes me feel, it starts to make me uncomfortable. But that used to be me. Now I sit in it. I allow myself to cry. I'm like, well, shit, I'm mad. I'm angry, or I'm disappointed, or I'm anxious, or you know what? This really bothered me. Like it really troubled me. It really rubbed me the wrong way. Whatever it is, I allow myself to sit in it. But I remember when I first started, it like feeling things because I was used to suppressing and numbing myself with alcohol and marijuana, and pills. When I allowed myself to feel, I hated it. I felt like it was wrong. I felt like it was weak. I was embarrassed. I even felt shame about allowing myself to feel things and sitting in that. And then crying. I felt like I was just so weak. Like, why are you crying? Why are you being weak about this? So when you first start this, it's going to be uncomfortable. Very, 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 very uncomfortable. And you're going to want to numb yourself. You're going to want a blunt. You're going to want to drink. You are going to want to maybe even go and have sex. Let's be real. So you're going to be uncomfortable. That's just the truth. You're going to want to escape maybe. Like I used to use escapism. Like if I would feel emotions and I would be like, oh, I don't want to feel like this. So then I would like use escapism, like reading, music, long car drives, like extremely long car drives in music. And then I would also escape by binge watching a movie or a show because I didn't want to feel that shit. I don't want to feel that. It's too mushy and it's like, ooh, it don't bother me, but it does, right? So understand that everything that I just talked about, allow yourself to go through that process. And even if you do light that blunt and you do make that drink, it's part of your process. And that's the thing, is like, this is not, there's no perfect way to do this. There isn't. There's no right way to do it. You just have to do it, whatever that looks like. And you need to work through it. And then you got to understand, like, this is coming from a girl when I used to start addressing my emotions, I had to take an edible. When I used to start addressing my emotions, I had to have a glass of wine. That was just me. But now I'm at a point where I can do it sober. And that's what I'm saying, is start where you are, build on top of that. And that's what healing is. It's not like you heal and you're this perfect person and everything's great. No, you heal and sometimes you're not the best person. Sometimes you're not in a good place. So there's no perfect way to deal with this shit. You just got to deal with it. And then you have to get to a point where you are able to do this sober. But if you can't start there, that's okay. I'm not here to judge. So that's all this is all I'm going to talk about for now. But yeah, that's part of doing your shadow work. Let me know if you have any questions. Anybody have questions? Lucky girl. I understand, girl. Do y'all have any questions before I end this live? And this video is going to stay up, so it will be available. No worries, no worries. And I'm telling you, like, once it's crazy, like, it's so crazy. But once you start to address these things, you won't need alcohol. Once you start to get used to addressing these things, you won't need marijuana. You won't need any of those things, because now you operate from a place of being real with yourself, to where you don't have to run from who you really are and how you really feel and run to marijuana that makes you feel differently, or run to alcohol that makes you kind of feel differently. Like, you can actually confront you being authentic and having a human experience and allowing yourself to feel these things from a sober place. But you have to crawl before you can walk. So start where you are, and don't feel like you have to be like perfect at this, because no one is, honestly. Okay, when I started my healing journey, when I started my spiritual journey, like I was at rock bottom. I was at rock bottom, and I was a destroyer. Okay, which really wasn't a bad thing, because sometimes for you to build something better, you have to destroy it first. You have to destroy what you were doing. You have to destroy who you were before. So like you being a destroyer is part of the process. Thank you, Trey. That is so sweet. How long can it take to be more authentic? It can take you experiencing more. That's all. Like it can take you going through life and just experiencing life more. And I think part of authenticity is trying new things, because a lot of times we avoid things simply because that's the norm. That's all we know. But if you really are trying to develop a more authentic version of yourself, because I can't say that who you are is truly inauthentic. It could, like, part of you can be authentic, but then maybe you don't allow yourself to go deeper, right? But if you really are trying to connect with your true authenticity, heal. Because a lot of times we are in false identities of self because of hurt, because of pain, because of trauma, because of PTSD, because of relationship trauma. So if you really want to be more authentic, take on a healing journey. That's going to help you become more authentic naturally too. Naturally. So how do you forgive yourself? My forgiveness was about me changing my perspective when it came to the mistakes that I made. So my forgiveness came from self-acceptance, that if I didn't make the mistakes that I made, I wouldn't be the person that I am today. It also came from ownership and accountability. So I was willing to own my mistakes because I was willing to better myself. I was willing to take accountability for my mistakes and my wrongdoings head on, because I was willing to do what it would take to be better and to not find myself back in those situations where I made a mistake. So I was okay with forgiving myself because I was willing to do the work. I was willing to take the ownership and the accountability. And I was willing to admit that my shit stank. So what is there not to forgive when you're willing to do that? Okay, so I'm assuming that's it. Ooh, I used to be a pushover too. Now you're filled with anger and isolation. I feel like that too is also part of the process. Just don't allow yourself to stay isolated, because sometimes when we stay isolated, it can cause depression and mental health issues. But I think right now, you being an ex pushover, you are in this isolation to learn more about how not to be. And think about it. If you had people around you, you would just be in the same cycle, being a pushover. You being isolated and angry is you come into the realization that you're fed up with being the pushover. And you being isolated is you allowing yourself to go through this process emotionally until you can get to a point where you know how to operate with other people around and not be a pushover. So give yourself the space, give yourself the time to be an ex-pushover who's angry and isolated, and allow that to just be a phase that you're in right now. But eventually you're going to have to process it. You're going to have to reflect on how you ended up being in situations where you were the pushover. Like for me, I didn't speak up for myself. Like I was the pushover. I would eat a lot of things just because I didn't want to say anything, or I didn't want to stand up for myself, or I didn't want to speak out. So you have to take accountability in the role that you played when it came to you being a pushover, because people can't label you a pushover if you don't allow it. Okay. So that's okay. But allow these phases to take course in your life. And when you allow phases to take course in your life, you become truly authentic. So don't be too judgmental when you're allowing yourself to go through phases that are not the prettiest. Okay. They're not the prettiest, but it's going to lead you to your authenticity. It's going to lead you to your true self-identity. It's part of the process. I don't even know. I don't know what type of projector I am. I need to look into that. I didn't even know they had different types. They just said I was a projector. I'm going to have to look into it. Thank you for bringing that to my attention, because now I'm interested in learning more about that. I'll be able to tell you soon. So I'm going to end the live. Thank you for tuning in. Please give the video a thumbs up, and I hope to catch you in my next one. And I hope this helps those that it's for.